who wrote this?
That's why you should do everything you love with passion, you know?
Yeah, who is that motherfucker, right?
They're smart. Because he didn't write that.
That's all there is.
No.
If you don't believe in heaven and hell,
Wow.
Isn't that sick?
Yeah, that's great.
I love it like that.
Wow. I mean, it's all just perspective, right?
100%. It's your perspective, your interpretation of stuff.
Yeah.
And then your perspective, someone's perspective has a lot to do with so many factors.
Yeah. Where they've been, what they've gone through.
How much money they have, how much money they don't have, where they live, where they grew up.
What they think they should have, what other people have. Yeah, it's interesting.
I always think this is wild, is if we were kids and we grew up in Nazi Germany during World War II, we would kill people.
Because you were
Or
convinced that it
we
was the
would
right.
die.
Because you were convinced that what it should have been.
That's insane.
Well, bro, that's
You don't even have like a choice. But I think there's a lot of people, to a lesser degree, they don't feel they have a choice, you know?
yeah. I'd go so far to say it seems like that's the prerogative of a lot of people in power and in control, is to continue that sort of feeling of people not having a choice. For people to feel like they don't have a choice, that they should just fall in line. I feel like that's the overarching thing that's been happening in like the world, and you just see it more so, or maybe some people are coming more awake to it because of social media. I think people are seeing that more.
I wonder if it's like there's powers that be that don't want certain things to happen, or if it's more like it's just too long of a story, so I'm just going to give you this metformin for your diabetes.
I see.
You know, like you could get outside and go on some walks, but I know that you're not. So here's this drug.
Yeah.
Here's a solution. And maybe people want to pay. Like I like buying stuff. I like buying something that if you were like, yo, dude, this magnesium is awesome. Like you're gonna get these sick pumps when you work out.
Yeah.
I would want to purchase it. I don't even really need much validation for it. I want to invest in that product that I think is going to help or assist in some way.
Yeah.
Shortcut or not, you know, even if it's not necessarily a shortcut.
Yeah, that's when it gets interesting then, because it's like some moves obviously are the right moves and some aren't the right moves. And it's just like this whole thing of life is like, how are we making sure we're making the right moves? And I guess ultimately you can't always make sure you make the right moves. It's just kind of what you know to that point, how much you know to that point. It's interesting. I guess when I start talking about stuff like this, I'm just like, how do you make things better for people who maybe they're at a point in their life where they don't think it could be better because they haven't reached that perspective that it could yet?
I think it needs to have like some stickiness to it. It needs to like resonate with them in some way. Something that I think everybody has it within themselves to do something hard and difficult and to get themselves to kind of breathe hard and work hard. It might look different from one person to the next, but that's what I'm obsessed with, is like, how do I get people, you know, I feel like I'm screaming from a mountaintop sometimes, and maybe sometimes I come off the wrong way, but I would love for people to feel what it feels like to pick up a heavy deadlift and to shake with it and then to finish it.
Yeah.
Your body tells you not to do it. Your brain tells you not to do it. And sometimes it's like a 1, 2, 3 count until the weight even moves off the ground. And your body's like, no, dude, don't. Your brain's telling you don't.
Yeah.
But all the training is the accumulation of you being able to do that. I don't know how to get people to that point, because a lot of people are so far on the other side that they feel paralyzed.
Well, you could speak directly to that. Let's say for the bench, what was your best bench ever?
I did an 854 equipped bench press.
Yeah. What about raw?
578.
So massive numbers both ways, right? Like, to your point, at one point, you 100% were not capable of that. What helped you feel like you could be capable of it then?
You have to give yourself wins. You need to build confidence, and you need to lift. In this case, with lifting, you need to lift within your means. So I'm a big proponent and big fan of, and I've always been this way, I'm a big fan of doing things that you love, but not doing them so much that they are to your detriment.
For some reason, I keep having these conversations. And it was after I watched the podcast with Goggins and Huberman, and they were talking about this part of the brain that either grows or shrinks based on you doing things that, like physically happening, doing things that you really don't want to do, but you know that you should. But if you say yes to the thing you really don't want to do and overcome it, that part of the brain like is gradually growing and sharpening your ability to continue to do that, or vice versa, where it's like if you do the thing, you pick the easy route, you pick the easy route, you pick the easy route. That's kind of your ability to overcome the thing that's hard that you know you need to, and you really don't want to. The next time is a little bit harder to overcome. So I don't know why I keep having this conversation. I keep hearing this idea, but it makes sense because I think before we got into this conversation about your benching, it sounded like we were going to start talking about doing the hard thing and choosing to do the hard thing.
There's so many versions of the hard thing, though. Do you mess around with any intermittent fasting or anything like that?
I've since, like, not purposely since I was a kid, basically. Like I'd say all throughout high school, I probably didn't eat until like I got home. And then it became this habit. And then I wouldn't even eat. I would work out and I wouldn't even eat for like an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I would eat after a workout, like middle of the day. And now that's evolved into I don't eat until about an hour after my workout. My workout's normally around like 12, 1 o'clock. So I don't eat till about 3 o'clock most days. And I've done that like my entire life, pretty much, my entire adult life.
I do a lot of the same thing. Obviously, I didn't do it when I was powerlifting and I weighed 330 pounds.
Yeah, which is that's like a whole nother crazy story.
Yeah,
of
I'm
yours.
220 nowadays. But
I'm 260 if you didn't know.
What I think is really interesting about what you were mentioning there is like there's different versions of hard. You know, how hard does something need to be? And I think that's where people get lost, is that they think that they need to go out and kind of kill themselves in a way. They need to do something so difficult that it's like dangerous. And when it comes to strength, you are going to do some things that are dangerous. When it comes to sport, if you're competing, you're going to do some things that are a little bit dangerous. But for your body to have a good response to it, for your body to get stronger or to get better at that thing, it doesn't have to be dangerous. The reason why I brought up intermittent fasting is because intermittent fasting, and the reason why I do it as well, versions of it, is that it's easier. Bodybuilding is hard. Walking around like a jabroni bodybuilder with your Tupperware everywhere.
Bro.
That stuff is really, like, I bow down to those guys. Those men and women that do that is incredible discipline, but I want nothing to do with it. I don't want like rotten chicken in my
To eat that many meals
in
throughout
that
the day.
gym bag and everything. Yeah. So
Yeah.
to stay tethered to your food like that is a discipline. I don't meal prep. You probably don't meal prep.
No, I have a meal prep company, but I don't meal prep now.
Right. The foods you still have access to convenient stuff.
100%, yeah.
Same here, but I don't particularly prep my meals the way that a bodybuilder might prep their meals.
I had at one point for probably about 6 years of my life, and I was like,
competing.
yes, back in 2011, and I was like till whatever that would have been 6 years after, and then I was just like, dude, this is, I love it. I loved it, and I enjoyed the process of it, but when I started to develop other businesses and other like focuses as far as like content and things outside of that, I was like, dude, I don't have time to do this.
Yeah.
I just like even if I woke up at 5 a.m. and like went to, and it had all this good schedule, I just didn't have time to do it anymore because of all the other stuff that was taking my time and pulling my attention.
So if you and I wanted to make things harder, we would actually probably go the other route. We'd probably eat a little bit more like a bodybuilder for a while, which would probably yield some really good results.
For
But
sure.
For sure, right? Like
Yeah.
you would instantly, you're kind of thinking like, oh yeah, if I did do that, I'd have a little bit more muscle. It'd be probably a little easier to be leaner. It'd probably be easier to not binge at night or to, want to order DoorDash or whatever.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie. The hardest thing for me is just eating at night, dude. Because I think part of the intermittent fasting thing has got me not eating maybe just total enough in general. So sometimes in the evening, I'm like, I'm super hungry. And I sometimes have a hard time getting up and gotta make sure I don't have the snacks at the house.
I think it can be difficult too. I think since I've known you, you've been in amazing shape. And then so when you're in good shape and you feel like you can control those variables pretty easy, you're like, I'll have some pizza today, but I'll train tomorrow and like everything will be good. You have the ability to flip a switch and to like get as lean as you would like. But that's almost a little bit of a curse, because on the other side,
100%.
you're like, oh, I got it. I got this. I'm going to take care of it. No problem.
Yeah. It's funny because truthfully, I could say looking back on like the time when I spent really focused on bodybuilding, I was 100% for sure never my best. Never. Like, because I was so focused on other stuff outside of it that I was not good at. Like, because I knew if I just had my consistency with my diet, I would have been way better. But I was like too caught up in trying to do all the other stuff.
You're real athletic and stuff. Do you have any desire to like compete in anything? Like,
I'd love to fight, but obviously it's such a weird.
there's so many people that you can beat up out there.
Well, yeah, it's such a weird space because obviously I'm not a professional fighter, so it's like I'm not gonna go fight professional fighters, you know. And then you see the influencer stuff, and you're like, oh, I want to do this thing, but it's like no one's doing that. No one's doing the MMA thing. And I've talked about this plenty of times. Like, I'd love to do MMA with Logan Paul, but it's like the same thing where like I probably wouldn't necessarily entertain a fight with some guy. Same reason why this guy's like Logan Paul, WWE superstar guy, probably not going to entertain a fight with me. And I can respect that. So it's like, I kind of just find myself in a spot where I'm like, well, I can't really do something like on a stage, but maybe I can do things. And I have done more stuff like just training, but like, you know, it's not on camera. It's not here. It's not there. But I really enjoy that. And I've probably spent the last like good amount of time. I don't like to say how much time, but a long amount of time, like just boxing. Because I was always better, like physically. Like,
How old are you?
34.
I think it's awesome. I hope that you continue to keep that athleticism, because that's something that I didn't continue to pursue my athleticism from when I was young, when I was powerlifting. And then like I'm trying to unwind a lot of that. So if you don't have to unwind it, it's going to be a lot better for you in the long run. So if you're still jumping and still doing some of the things, do you do those things just because you like them?
Which one's the jumping stuff?
Yeah, just like all
I mean, dude, it was weird because like
you're good at it and you feel
yeah, you know,
good.
it's really because you know how I used to, I probably at this point, I probably still could like jump, vertical jump. I remember a guy came to my gym once and he has the world record in vertical jump, and he was a fan and he's crushing it on the internet now. But he came to me at my gym and he goes, you know, you were like an inch away from the world record.
Holy
And I never knew it.
wow.
I never knew it back then. He has the world record now. He was a guy who came to my old gym and he told me, he was like, damn, like if you just jumped this much higher, like an inch or inch and a half, like you would have had the world record. And I'm like completely oblivious to
That's
that.
fascinating because you're not a light guy.
Yeah. No, I'm
crazy.
not. So he was telling me this. I think he now is like a couple inches above that. But I had no idea. The point is, I never really trained for that. Like I trained Olympic weightlifting before I really got into bodybuilding. And then in
For a while?
for a while.
For like
yeah.
okay.
So I was doing the snatch and clean and jerk, like just, you know, hyper extensions with the barbell on my back, and then front squats, back squats, and all the variations of those. And that's all I did. And then I got into like physique and bodybuilding. And then that kind of turned into like physique, bodybuilding, and powerlifting, like power building, whatever you want to call it. But it's interesting because we were talking earlier about like just genetic people who are just genetically gifted. We're talking about LeBron James and stuff.
Shaq.
I'm a Shaq, yeah. I never trained to be good at jumping. I just jumped one day and was like, whoa, I'm good at this. And then I would just do it a little bit more, but I was never like, oh, I'm going to jump 5 times a week and I'm going to do it to try to progress it. I was just good at it. And then I just did it every once in a while and like I was getting a little higher. It's like I wasn't training it.
I think that's normal when you hear from other people when they're good at something. I have a similar story. The first couple times I bench pressed with my friends in our garage, in our basement. So we had weights. Your environment is going to dictate a lot of these things. Maybe you played a bunch of different sports and stuff, and maybe there's more jumping and more explosiveness in your history than you even remember because, again, you were doing it A, because it was fun, and B, maybe because it was part of a sport.
Yeah. Well, dude, I remember one time, interrupt you, I'm sorry, but when I was in high school, I was that kid. I was a stupid kid in like the lunch yard, and like I would like jump over people. So I would like line people up and like catapult myself over people. And I wish I could find this clip because it must have been filmed on a like toaster at the time.
Yeah.
Where I remember jumping over like, it must have been 4 or 5 people, and I cleared them, and then like we just went crazy. And this clip is it might be on a Razor phone somewhere. That's
Somebody's got it. Somebody out there. Hey,
I wish, dude. And I wish I could find this clip because it was just back in like 2000.
In your head, it was like 25 people that you jumped over.
No. Yeah, no. It was like four.
Yeah.
It was 4 or 3. And I just remember everyone went crazy, but I always did like weird.
Yeah.
I was always just weirdly good at things that I never tried to be good at. And I was like, let me just try this. So, but I wish I could find that clip, man, because I swear to you, bro, like I still remember that. I'm like, damn, I really did that. And it was like a weird moment, weird moment.
I think the name of the movie might be Unbreakable. It's got Bruce Willis in it. And there's a scene where he's bench pressing and he starts adding more and more weight. And his son is in the basement with him. His son is really little. He tells his son, he's like, you should back up a little bit because like this might be kind of dangerous. And so he keeps adding weight and adding weight. Then they have no more weight. This is him discovering like how strong he is. And he keeps putting more stuff on there. And then he's putting like buckets on there. And now the kid is like hiding in the closet watching him bench press. I had a similar experience. My brother told my cousin, my brother is 4 years older than me. My cousin is about 4 years older than me. My brother told my cousin, I think I was around 13 or 14. He's like, that my nickname is Smelly. They're like, Smelly can bench 205. And my cousin
At what
was
age?
like, yeah, like 13 or 14 years old. Yeah. I've already,
That's actually insane.
keep in mind, I probably already weighed like 180, 190. Like I was a big kid. I was 240.
Either
by the time
way,
I was,
though,
like,
at that
16.
age is insane.
Yeah. So I benched around that weight. So my brother puts the weight on and we're in our basement. And my brother's trying to be real safe with me. He's just using little incremental weights, just 2.5 pounds on each side each time. So I did like 195, 200, 205, all the way until we got to 240 pounds. And I did that, it was a crazy weird lift or whatever, right? And I put the weight in the rack and my cousin's like, he's like, that's going to turn into something. He's like, I don't know what you do with that, but he's like, I think that's going to be something for you someday. So,
And then boom, slingshot.
yeah.
I mean, dude.
Yeah, that's kind of my origin story. Now, it doesn't go without any work.
Of course.
It doesn't mean that I didn't lift and stuff, but you could make an argument that people work way harder and never bench that weight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was doing it young. And I also had I had 2 older brothers. They both were into lifting. And then we also had a friend that was a power lifter. He squatted 700 pounds at like 198, older guy. And he was a guy, he gave us like 5x, like we were doing all that stuff, Bulgarian workouts.
Man.
I remember being pumped. I remember being so pumped to get out of school for the summer. Cause like, this is going to be sick. I get to do the Bulgarian training program because they train 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Like school would be in the way of my like middle of the day training session.
Dude.
So I was doing that stuff like forever ago.
Yeah. It's crazy because this working out seems to be it's coming back. It's really popular, not coming
With
back.
young people, it seems to get
It's
really
getting more popular,
Yeah.
which is cool because for a very long time, it was like not popular at all. And I don't know. I just feel like kids should be pushed towards more of that kind of stuff because nowadays it seems like kids are just, I don't know, they're soft.
People spend 90% of their time inside.
Yeah,
I heard
probably
that
on their
recently.
phone, locked in.
I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot. So even sometimes in the gym, sometimes you're still inside. But people need to exercise. I mean, there's no question. I just said the other day, and it's a totally meathead statement, but I said, if you don't lift, you don't count.
Bro, I think that's a fact. I think we have to make that a thing.
We got
to bully again.
I don't want to hear.
We should bully weak kids. No, seriously, we should be like, you should stop being weak. Like,
get your
obviously, you don't got to be as strong as that guy who's super strong, but like, yo, let's get strong. At least try to get stronger.
Well, it's interesting you were mentioning about like fighting. That's an interesting thing. Like, we don't really need to fight anymore.
Yeah.
We don't need to fight. But what if you do? What if you do have to fight?
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like innately humans need something that's like strenuous to your body. Otherwise, like, like, are we just gonna evolve into like putty? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just understand. I don't get that. I don't understand. Like, for example, right? This Neuralink, Elon Musk recently, like yesterday, was like the Neuralink's first thing that they're working on, an app within the Neuralink, is called telepathy, where if you look at your phone, right, your phone, because somehow it's going to connect to the phone, is going to do what you think without you doing anything.
Get out of here.
Yeah, bro. Yes. You didn't see this?
That's
So
wild.
if I open my phone and I'm like, and I'm thinking in my head, if I have this Neuralink on, apparently, I don't obviously know all the details, but he made it sound like, so if I'm looking at my phone, I'd be like, I'm thinking of Twitter. It's going to open up Twitter. I'm going to think of compose a tweet. It's going to start composing my thoughts. So then I was like, wait, like that level of like automatic listening to my sort of like thoughts, creating action on my phone. Then I'm like, well, what if there was a way where there's some app called download and you just download, let's say like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt skills.
Like the Matrix.
Yes. You download like Conor McGregor's boxing skills or Mayweather boxing. Like what if there was a way to synthesize that data and then you to be able to download that data with this sort of device and then you just know those skills.
That's coming.
But then it makes it really weird because then you go, another example, like I was having this conversation last night, Beethoven, right? Or even these fighting skills. Let's say you have these skills now. What makes anyone special? Like, so say I downloaded Beethoven's ability to make music and I'm just like, I'm Beethoven now, right? So then what makes anyone special?
It's the podcast world, right? Like the podcasts have exploded. Social media has exploded. Who has a voice? Everybody.
Yeah.
Now everybody has a voice. That's interesting. Should everybody have a voice? Should everyone, not everyone, but like, should a lot of people have influence? That's an interesting, or should there kind of be more like one guy to kind of look to? I don't know what the answer is, but it's an interesting thing when you start to kind of walk your brain through it. You're like, how many different people should we be listening to? Maybe it's more helpful when you have multiple people because maybe you get, you know, some information from Huberman and he says these things, get some information from Joe Rogan, he says these things, and you got kind of stack some of that information up with your own beliefs. But with like AI coming down the pipeline and some of the stuff that you're talking about, if you can think about it and it gets like basically transmuted back to you, what does that turn into? And then also, is there influence of advertising? Is there influence of, you know what I
Straight
mean?
to your brain.
Is there influence of, what's the word I'm looking for? Is there politics involved?
Yeah.
You know, is there politics involved? Which there kind of always is. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I have had this happen a bunch of times. I'm listening to a podcast. I'm really focused. I'm paying attention to it. I'm like, wow, this guy's saying a really good. And then all of a sudden it's like a whole thing on, or I've had this happen with documentaries. It's a whole thing about being vegan. And I'm like, man, they had some nice information. I'm not going to dismiss the information now that I found out that they're vegan, but damn, I didn't see that coming at all. And then the whole rest of the movie, I've seen this on Netflix a couple times now. The whole rest of the movie is like politically charged. I'm like, this is strange. Because then they're not sharing facts anymore.
Wait, how something changes real time? Wait, what are you saying? Something changed real time for you?
No. It doesn't change in real time. The film is the film, but as I'm watching it, they're sharing information. They're getting you to buy in. I'm like, oh, this is really cool information. Okay, cool.
A documentary about?
Most of them have been like nutrition.
Okay.
Most of them have been in the nutrition space. I can't remember You Are What You Eat or something like that. I think that came out recently. And they did these studies on twins and things like that. And they had some great information. Another one was on blue zones. They had some really great information in the beginning, but then once it was kind of revealed that it was more of a plant-based initiative, it just went in a completely different direction. It just went all politics almost from the rest of the movie. And I'm like, that's crap. They're hiding a lot of great information from people.
Yeah.
So that's the concern, I think, with some of these things, being able to like think something and then have it come back to you. Are those things going to be like politically charged? Is there going to be a lot of advertising in there?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's already happening to a certain extent.
That's definitely happening. It's happening on our phones all the time. But to answer I want your opinion on my question, though, more specifically, like if everyone could do everything at the highest level, right? If they were just given this like ability, then what is special? You see what I'm saying? And how how do you progress forward as a society where like people are still identified as special? Not that you need to, I guess, in a sense, but I don't know. It's like if everyone could do it, let's say at some point everyone had that and everyone could just be like, I could play Beethoven's music, then Beethoven's not Beethoven, it's everyone.
It's an interesting conversation because is everyone special? You know, like my belief, my personal belief is that everyone has a godlike feature within them. Everyone has like a little chunk of divinity. It's kind of our job for us to try to find that. I don't know exactly how someone finds it, but finding the things that you're good at, I think those are all things that can be really helpful with it. But
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is on like having, you know, if everyone's skilled, what is the difference? I guess the difference could be creativity.
Yeah, I think it then comes down to perspective. I think then your own perspective on how you take, which then just goes back to the same thing in general in life now that's relevant to success and having success or succeeding at a high level, is what you do with it. Because just because you receive information and you play like Beethoven, I guess that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to like create another song that's like just as much of a hit, you know, or like maybe, I don't know, like, but then again, that's different. Because if we start talking about fighting, let's say I downloaded my ability to like be an expert at this and an expert at that, and then I already had the physical strength capabilities, then wouldn't I just smoke everyone?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then it's like, that's like more physical application of like this sort of downloading of expertise, we'll call it. But yeah, I just keep going in circles with it where I'm like, then we're all just the same at some point. If that ability is there to download. And because dude, I feel like if there's a device in my brain that's reading signals or like nervous system, like cues, and it's creating movement on like a platform, how could the inverse not be a thing?
I think we're simultaneously getting smarter and dumber at the same time. So like, we don't need, like, I have no idea how I got here today. Like I just used the Lyft app, you know, and I got here, but I don't really know. I know sort of where I am.
Yeah.
And I know sort of where I came from, but I don't need to know a map. I don't need to be able to open up a Thomas guide and be like, oh, I'm going to get to Bradley's this way. And so I think simultaneously we're losing some of those aspects. And I think what could potentially be the divider would be the people that not only learned how to fight, but could actually fight. Not somebody that knows about fishing, but somebody that can actually fish, someone that can actually hunt, someone that actually knows how to like skin an animal, somebody that knows how to fix things. And I think maybe those things would be a dividing factor, because at some point.
But what if you could just download that information and you just knew it?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, but there's going to be people with this like weird intangible. Like there's people that just sort of know how to fix stuff. I know you can learn it, but I think that might be a little bit of a separator, is the person that's a little bit more creative and the person that is maybe a little bit more resourceful and the person that's willing to do it, because just because you learned it doesn't mean you're willing to do it. So you can learn everything about fighting, but if you don't go out on a jog once in a while, or you don't exercise in other ways, it would be, if you only fought, you'd probably build up enough conditioning to where that might be okay. But if you're only like reading about it and you're only just practicing it a little bit, I don't think that's going to really be a thing that would have you be expert level, because you only like know it, but you're not actually doing it.
Applying it.
You got to apply it. And I think that is like, what's the biggest problem with people being fat these days? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially nowadays, because everyone I feel like knows to a very vague idea, but enough to make it happen or not. Like, don't eat.
So people have the knowledge, and how come they're
not applying it?
But everyone's in a different spot. You mentioned earlier about perspective. Your perspective, your interpretation. If you start rattling off how you eat, and especially how you ate years ago, and how you kind of built yourself up, and now you maintain this physique, you would lose somebody after talking for 2-3 minutes. Not because of what you said was complicated, just because they don't want to do it.
Yeah,
you would be saying,
so funny.
You'd be saying too many things. Their eyes get glazed over.
Dude,
you can see
I've
it.
had so many conversations with so many like really well-known influencers who aren't in the fitness space, and I'll have these conversations because they'll be like, "Yo, bro, how do I have like every single one hits me up because I'm kind of like in both spaces, and I'm like, yo, it's like this and that, and like you could tell like a lot of it at the time, they're like exactly what you said. They start going like, and then they start looking like, not that they're disinterested, but they're just like, it sounds like a lot of work. And they're just minds like shuts off. Like I was on the phone with my buddy Ginny on the other day. He's talked to me multiple times about losing weight. And he talked to me again, and he was like, no, but they always appreciate the motivation. He was a super grateful guy. But same thing, it's like, yo, you know what you got to do. You've done it. He even has been in a place where he had already kind of been a gym bro and kind of fell out of it somehow for content. And you're right. People always know the truth. It's just like, I guess this is it. This is it. The difference between people who really succeed, and I think even if you download information and had it like that, it's the people who are willing to actually apply it still every day moving forward. Because those are the same people that, whether they got the download or not, they wanted something and they worked for it every day in some way, and that's why they have it.
Apply it and learn from it, and then also, let's not forget, it's not just you in this world, you know. So you learning a lot of stuff is really helpful. But you being able to interact with other people is massive.
Yeah.
The impact that you have on people, the way you talk to people, the way you share stuff with people is huge. And for myself personally, I have worked on this for a while now. I worked on equanimity. I worked on trying to have like a balanced mind.
Is that what equanimity means?
I think so.
I don't know.
So I have
It's the first time I've ever heard that word.
Yeah, equanimity. Yeah, basically having a balanced mind. Even in the face of adversity, even in the face of like, you know, I don't know, I get a text on my phone that something crazy happened and I'll just spike the phone on the ground. Or,
being able to,
I just tell you, hey,
that's
man,
a dope word.
Bradley, something, you know, happened to my family and I appreciate you, but I really have to, you know, I have to go.
Yeah.
Like handling it, you know what I mean? And
so like women have none of this. That's what you're saying.
Well, I think that women they can be reactionary, which sometimes is, and there's some guys that do the same thing. Of course. But I think that emotion and that reactionary instinct, I think, can be good sometimes because what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about like taking a plunger and just stuffing all my problems down into my guts and then like never sharing anything with anybody.
That's bad. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah, that's gonna probably be the most unhealthy thing you can do.
Yeah.
Regardless of food and drugs and everything else. Like it's just that, like you're going to explode. But equanimity and balancing your mind. And so this is something I've been working on for a really long time. I went and what I would say is I sort of cleaned out my closet, which I actually have to literally clean out.
You're gay now.
Yes, no, I had to make space. I had to make space for the closet so I could come out of it and have a grandiose entrance. But a lot of people would just be like, I knew it. I knew it.
Dude, gym bros in the gym, they're all like 10% gay.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's feeling each other. Oh, those are nice triceps. Like, okay. Yeah. This is how it starts.
You want to touch them?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny, man. I like what you said about the plunger thing. I think, and I want to ask you this question because there's definitely been times in my life where I fully did the plunger act where I stuffed things down and slowly over time, like revisit it. And then I worked through it. And obviously, it's made my life incredible. But there's also been times when I didn't work through it. And then the things that I should have worked through would come up in, you know, in a different relationship, in a different friendship and cause the same sort of issues because I didn't deal with it. Why do you think people tend to just stuff that down and not speak on it and not share it and not try to process it?
I think a lot of times people want to try to, especially a lot of men, I think they just want to try to solve their own problem. And you and I we're in similar spots. We're in the fitness industry. And if you share something, if you share something with me that you feel like you drink way too much and you're out of control and you're to your family and stuff like that, I think that you might view that as like being something that would disappoint me. But if you actually think about it, if you think about your friends that tell you certain things, I mean, they can disappoint you with certain actions and certain things that they do. But if they were to tell you that they're going through a really hard problem, imagine that a family member, a friend, telling you they have this issue, and you wouldn't be disappointed. No. You'd be flattered that they came to you and that they talked to you and say, hey, this is really good, man. Let's get this out in the open.
All right, guys, quick announcement for the podcast. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Check this out, guys. I've talked about this many times, but it never is not important. If you guys are looking for outside advice, unbiased advice from someone else who's going to be able to help you kind of work through what you're going through, whether it's a relationship thing, a personal thing, a business thing, a friendship thing, it doesn't matter. BetterHelp has got your back. It's super simple, super easy. It allows you to do it from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to worry about traffic. You can do it at your convenience, set up the times. It's easy for you. I promise you, it always helps to get a different opinion other than your own and other than some sort of biased opinion on someone, you know, from someone that's like in your circle on some sort of topic that you're trying to like work through. It always helps to get like an outside view because it helps you to look at the whole situation from a little bit more of a bird's eye perspective. So if you guys ever thought about getting help, I promise you BetterHelp is there for you. Go to betterhelp.com. That's betterhelp.com/raw talk to get 10% off your first month. betterhelp.com/raw talk. Let's get back into this podcast.
Well, if somebody is, you know, around your age, 35, 34, something like that, and they don't have a significant other,
Yeah.
you know, their mind might be racing about what's my future. Oh man, I always wanted to have kids, and they might build up a lot of anxiety towards something like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for us to share these things. I just think you feel like a wimp, or you feel like sometimes when you share those things. If I come to you and I say, hey man, I noticed that you're, you know, rocking out on like deadlifts and stuff, and you've been doing it for a long time. I want to build my deadlift back up. I have a trouble with the lockout. It's like, that's no big deal for me to like share that with you.
Yeah.
Like I don't have any trouble sharing that with you. But if I'm like, yo man, I can't get my dick hard or whatever, like,
Yeah.
you know
That's
what I
what
mean?
I mean. It's more personal for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people develop, I don't know. I mean, we develop so much when we're younger. And I think when we're younger, maybe that's where we develop the, I don't want to, a kind of mentality of like, I don't want to be in trouble or I don't want to be wrong. And then it kind of just transitions to the rest of your life where then sort of those things that have happened to you where you feel sort of troubled or not necessarily wrong, or maybe you did wrong or something was done wrong to you, you maybe don't want to really share it or be vocal about it because you're maybe somewhat ashamed.
There's also a lot of work involved. So if I go to you and I say, man, I know you're able to get in good shape and I want to, you know, do a bodybuilding show or something. Well, if I open up that can of worms, I know that you're going to hit me with so much information, which is great, but now I got to work on this problem. Or I say, man, I have this issue with my wife and we're just not seeing eye to eye. And you mentioned a bunch of things. You say, oh, I went through something similar, dude. And I went to a therapist and they told me these 5 things and you give me this great information. Well, now I got to go and work on it. I'd rather just take a broom and just sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, it's the work. Why are people so afraid of work?
And not have to do it. I think it's because they're sometimes working on something that they're not familiar with and that they're not good at. So for you to work on jumping or lifting, or for me to work on running or lifting isn't really that big of a deal. For me to make these kind of small changes, like I did a bodybuilding show. I went from powerlifting and then I lost weight over a really long period of time.
I remember that.
And then I ended up doing a bodybuilding show. And then people are like, those are way different. It's like, well, they're different, but I mean, it's not like I immediately jumped into like a triathlon, or it's not like I immediately became like a chemist and like learned chemistry and like, you know, now a professor at Stanford or something crazy like that. Like that's a crazy shift. So I think sometimes for people, they're worried about the work, which is really smart. I think especially when we go back to talking about people that are heavy, they know it entails a lot and they don't want to work on it. And I think the other factor too that is in here too is like your lifestyle. Your lifestyle starts to get questioned, and that's kind of offensive. That's why diet is so cult-like, is because it's like you're trying to tell me how to live my life, and that's offensive to me. Like I want to be able to 7 p.m., 8 p.m. I want to be able to relax. I want to be able to have. Why can't I have a dessert? Why can't I have a beer? So I think people get offended by that. It's like you can have those things, but the situation that you're in, you're behind. You have body fat to lose, and so you have to go in a different direction.
Yeah. I guess it all just does come back to the fact that people are seemingly afraid of doing hard work, choosing the thing that's harder, like the shit we were talking about earlier. And I think the more you choose the thing that's easier, and you keep choosing the thing that's easier, it's so much harder to switch it and go. So that's what it's like. What do you think someone needs to like? Seems like most people need like a real health scare in order to like really make a change.
They say that people need to have 3 health scares before they make a considerable change. So if somebody has a heart attack or something like that, a lot of times that's not enough. Like a bunch of other stuff has
That
to
seems
happen.
insane. Like if I had a heart attack, I'd be like, oh, everything's changing.
I think it's, again, the word perspective. Perspective and interpretation, I think so much lies on that. And if you, it's interesting because a lot of people I talk to, and you probably end up with the same thing, is people that come to me for diet advice and come to me and they want to make these changes and be healthier. When they start to unpack some of that and they start to tell you about it and they tell you how lazy they are with stuff, I'm like, you're not lazy. You have 3 kids. Like, and you're always picking your kids up from school. You're always taking your kids to these different sports that they play. I see you all over town all the time. I see you walking your dogs. I see you doing all these things. And you start to point out these things that people do. And it's like, dude, you're a 8 out of 10 in so many categories. You know, you're not a total maniac and you're not, 10 out of 10 on everything, but you're very disciplined in a lot of ways. And I think that when they have this weakness with their nutrition or with their fitness, I think they just think they're a total failure. But it's like, you haven't really practiced it. This is a practice. They call it jujitsu or martial arts. They call it a practice.
Yeah.
That's what we're in. Like, fitness is a practice. Lifting weights is a practice. And to go back a little bit more to the beginning when we were talking about doing hard stuff, the really interesting thing when it comes to powerlifting is it's the practice of powerlifting that will get you incredibly strong. It's not necessarily the 1 rep maxes and those types of things that are really at that highest level of intensity. Not that you don't need that, because you need that and you need to learn it. It's a skill to some degree. But the answers lie in the same place where they lie everywhere else in your life. The answers are in the 70 to maybe 85% of intensity.
Effort, yeah.
Yeah, of effort. That's where, that is in every aspect. That's in every sport. If you're playing baseball and you're just at bat and you're like trying, so hard, but if you're a little more relaxed and you just recognize that with this free throw or with this practice that you're doing, this is a practice. I'm going to be here tomorrow and I'm going to be here the day after.
So
it's accumulation.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I think the reason why it seems from the outside looking in, like obviously for me, this training stuff's it's not a problem, right? I have other problems that I'm not as great at and things in my life that I actively work on and know that I need to like put my energy towards to be better at.
I want to interrupt just for a second and say that I think that people think that you and I are so disciplined, and we might be we might be in a broad category in a bunch of areas, but we like to lift. Yeah. We like the lifestyle. We like the results. So if you had us eat like crap for 90 days and you had us like not lift, that would feel like discipline to us. We probably wouldn't even accept any amount of money to do something like that, because we're like, that's crazy. I ain't doing that. Yeah. So for us, we're just sort of flipped the other way, discipline-wise.
On our heads, yeah. Insane. But the point I was trying to make was in regards to the way, and I talked to your brother about this, and he was interviewing me for the film that they're working on, the Bigger, Faster, Stronger, I guess number 2. The way that people have been conditioned, specifically in the West for so many years now, is like, buy this thing, it'll do this for you. And it's all kind of like commerce based. It's all kind of money based. So I think people have been convinced over time that it's like, you need a supplement, you need this, you need that, you need all these things that you can buy, or this pill that you could take that's going to fix your problems. And I think people have been conditioned to like not think of the fact that they need to do all this hard shit to get what they want physically, and just not even just physically. We're talking about like business stuff. Everything comes down to the same sort of like, are you focused on it? Are you putting the time towards it? Is it something you're working on every day to get better at? And I think that we've been conditioned just as a society to just go, that pill, that's all I need. Cool. How much? I'll take it. And that's part of the problem in all of this, where it's just, you're pushing people towards look for the easiest, simplest like pill, buy this thing, and then that's all you need. And that's just not, like even in conversations about steroids and stuff, it's like people think that, oh, you just do this and you look like Ronnie Coleman. It's like Ronnie Coleman, one of the most genetically gifted specimens ever for bodybuilding, still cannot just take a thing and just show up and like never touch a weight, never put intensity, never put effort, and just be Ronnie Coleman at his peak. That's not what he did to get there. And I think people just have this misconception that everyone's looking for the easy way out in so many facets of their life, whether it be like a relationship, like I'm just going to avoid this conversation because it's easier, even though the conversation needs to happen so that the two people could understand, oh, hey, this is how I feel. This is how you feel. Okay, we can make it work or we can't. I think people are so conditioned by just our society and the way everything's presented to us that we need everything as easy and as fast as possible. Right.
I think everything is within us, like all the tools that we need, all the answers that we need. Now, you're also going to get a lot of answers from other people too, and that's what I was trying to illustrate earlier when I said I cleaned out my closet so I can come out of it.
Yeah.
When I was talking about cleaning out my closet, it's something that has helped me a ton, right? And it has helped some other people around me, especially the people that are in close proximity. But what I've learned is I still can't control the way other people feel. I still can't control someone else being super reactionary. So then now how do I deal with somebody being reactionary towards me? You mentioned those hard conversations. That's a weak point of mine.
Yeah.
I don't like those. My wife runs our company. She deals with those. We've lost many employees over the years. Just it's the way business goes. Hire people, fire people. It's the way it is. And people have been pissed when they didn't get fired by me. But I don't handle that part of our business because that, again, that's not a strength for me, but that is something that I should work on, probably get more disciplined with. I think I have the same fear as someone going to you or going to me with a weakness where I don't want to be super disappointing to somebody. I don't want to hurt somebody. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to, because it's hard for someone to separate it out. Like, I'm not telling you that you're person, but this just isn't working business-wise anymore.
Yeah.
Like we're not getting out of it what we need, or we're moving on, or we're trying to move in a different direction. So that's kind of the way when I worked on those things and I worked on getting myself balanced and having equanimity, it's like there's still a lot of rumbling going on because I still have so many other people in my life. And I'm sure you probably ran into similar situations, helping out friends, helping out family, especially financially. Like financially, first of all, I've never cared about money. I still don't care about money. And if something can be solved by just chucking some money at it here and there, I don't mind doing that. I don't mind, like someone is in a compromised position, I don't mind just, giving that support. But then at the same time, things like that can cause a lot of really uncomfortable situations within a family. Having a family member work for you, or even just sharing your wealth. It's like things get more tangled up than you would think.
Yeah. Well, in cases like that people become like almost like kids to you if they're like reliant on money, and it's like, some people shouldn't be in positions like that.
Right.
God, I've had so many situations like that. Just like old employees and people that have worked for me that I'd like, I'm going to go out of my way and try and help them in these situations. And then looking back, I'm like, this totally fucked me out, fucked me financially. And then it's like the guys over here being like, oh, he's the bad guy. And you're like, what the fuck? I've dealt with a lot of that kind of.
You stuck your neck out for somebody for a while and just didn't make sense anymore. And then
lost money while doing it. Then got, treated while it was happening, while it was ending. Like, it's a weird, I guess that's part of having money or making money or having power. It's interesting.
I find it so interesting that you're the employee-employer relationship. The employee always thinks that they're not getting paid enough and that they work way too much, and the employer always thinks almost the exact opposite. It's like, man, I'm paying that guy that amount of money, and he's not getting, he's not doing all this stuff.
Yeah, I've had that tons of times, but then I've also had situations where like someone consistently goes above and beyond, and it's like, man, I want nothing more than that person to like 100%. Make more and more money because like they're adding so much value. The the genre, like the area that I work in, it's all kind of based on that, you know, like it's not like a typical job. And for me, and what I've seen over the years of like being in the social media space and building businesses within it, it's just about getting someone who like really sees the vision and to it as much as you do, if not more, and from a different perspective, and putting people in the right places for them to really succeed and excel at what they're doing. Because I've had times where I just put people in the wrong place and it just turned into a shit show, or but then move things around and it's better. So it's interesting because like as the boss or as the person in charge, I think the number one goal is like putting people in the right position, and sometimes obviously trying to let go of a little bit of control because you have to. Because for me, if I'm not doing all the things that I know that I should be focused on, like the creative and like, you know, pushing forward the needle in that direction, then nothing starts to work because I'm double back trying to make sure they're doing this other job that they maybe just shouldn't have been doing. Someone else should have done it. And that's been just a learning curve for me in my life in a lot of ways, man, tons of ways. But I want to ask you a little bit about your business, but also right now, currently, you got removed from YouTube and you've been on YouTube for what, 10 years?
I think like 16 years. Yeah, I started in 2006. So I used to have a put file account. Do you remember put file?
Yeah, what the holy shit, you're old.
Yeah, I'm dinosaur
dude.
over here.
That's dope though. So what happened? Like you I've known you for a very long time. Obviously, we've had tons of interactions together. We filmed content together. You were at like around when my gym first opened 8 years ago. We filmed content. We've had tons of conversations, and your content over all the years has never been, in my opinion, controversial. I mean, you talk about steroids. You've never done anything like, in my opinion, I've never seen anything that was like against guidelines.
Right.
And so how do you get kicked off the platform like that?
I think you're going to get canceled now for having me on the show.
No, I don't think so. I think, well, this is interesting because no, it is interesting because there is something called ban evasion. You're banned for life. Yeah, that's crazy. Because same thing with Steve Will Do It. He was banned. And then, you know, I had him on a few episodes and they were like, yo, you can't keep having him on episodes. And I was like, okay, like he can't even be on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're banned for life?
No, I'm not banned for life. Luckily, we got the channel back.
So you got it back.
Yeah, it was my podcast.
So what did they say?
Channel.
Why was it banned?
They didn't have a lot of good reasons. First of all, I just want to say that I love YouTube.
Dude, me too. I mean, that's where I started.
I listen to YouTube every single day. It's the way I consume information. And whenever I'm looking something up or want to find something out, I always go to YouTube. And so I've been doing that forever, and I've always appreciated YouTube. And then on the creator side, I've always loved being part of YouTube. Like, it's a great platform. It's allowed me to get a fan base. It's also helped me with my business. It's helped me in like so many different ways. But how cool is it that there's this free app that you get to use where you get to express yourself for pretty much as long as you want. There's nothing that compares to YouTube, and you can upload as many videos as you want. It's crazy. And then on top of that, they'll pay you. Mm-hmm. So it's wild. So like when it happened, I wasn't like, oh my God, I can't believe this. You know, how dare they? I was like, well, it's their company. They can kind of do whatever they want. Where I was disappointed and frustrated was I didn't get any information. Just the channel was gone. We had Dr. Sean Baker on our podcast, and I was excited to kind of see if it was up, and I wanted to share it back to him. And I went and I looked, and I was like, there's nothing there. I got information from our podcast team, and they're like, the channel's, it got erased. And I was like, and so we had to contact YouTube. We had to try to figure out what happened. And what they say, and I don't know, I mean, it's just what they're saying. I have no idea. It doesn't seem to make any sense, but we supposedly got the axe from YouTube for a link that was in like the description.
Yeah.
And it was a link to a peptide company. And I guess they have a hard rule about you can't have any sort of sales of anything that normally needs a prescription. And so that's what we got dinged for. And I had no idea. I never heard of that rule. I didn't know.
Really?
But I mean, how often? I mean, people are always talking about peptides, you know.
Yeah.
So I had no.
You need a
clue.
prescription for peptides? I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need a prescription. You can order them online, but they want you to use a prescription. So that's where you start to get into
want you to use a prescription?
a prescription. I think so. But that's where you start to get into like, I don't know, maybe a little conspiracy theory going on with big pharma, YouTube, everyone's, you know, I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know. But yeah, it was stupid. I was just like,
And so you got it back? And
yeah, we got it back because we just have awesome fans. And this guy contacted me. He's like, I work at YouTube. He's like, I'm in the sports department and I'll investigate this. I'll look it up. He's like, I watch your show all the time.
yeah.
Massive fan. And he's like, I've never seen anything on your show that would warrant you being, he's like, it's kind of weird. You didn't get like a strike or anything but
Because I thought it was 3 strikes. I always thought there was 3 strikes.
that's what I heard. That's
Yeah.
what people were saying, that there's strikes and stuff like that. But we never got any word of anything like that. It was just gone. And so we were thinking like, okay, well maybe we'll restart, you know, and then we're like, well, maybe we'll go on Twitter. We were trying to figure it out. But yeah, this random dude on Instagram reached out. His name's Jorge, and he hooked it up. And next thing you know, we were back. So that's even strange though too, right? Because like, I don't know if there was an infraction or something, you figure they would give you more information so it doesn't happen again type thing. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. Internet, man. It's like the Wild West nowadays.
Have you ever had that happen?
Me personally, no. I think I maybe had a strike once because I was like burning something in a video and it was like dangerous on one of my other channels, but never for any of my content specifically, like for me. And I've never had anything where it was like, yo, you're going to get removed. And I've always had a good communication with YouTube as well. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I also take full ownership of stuff, you know, just being a business owner and doing things as long as I have. The person that put that link up, you know, it's not their fault. I take full responsibility. It's my fault. I wasn't aware of the rule. Didn't know it worked that way. And so I try to do that with almost everything I'm involved in, because it's like, well, you appointed these people, you hired these people to be in these certain spots. So it still comes that's the way I look at it. It still comes back on me. If something bad happens in the company or things are sliding downhill, that's on me. If things are going up, I'll take some credit for it here and there too.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. Yeah. I think it's really important.
Do you do that with your business a little bit too?
Yeah. I remember earlier on, I had a little bit of a hard time. Like sometimes it much easier, like for most people and most things, easier to blame other people when things go wrong. But then I realized like, okay, like if I want this to be what I really want it to be, then I'm going to make sure of these things happening or not. And that's why I said earlier about like finding the right people, putting them in the right positions. Because I could specifically remember a couple of instances where like I had certain people in certain jobs and like I kind of knew that it wasn't the best fit, but like it still was like most comfortable. And it's again, going back to doing things that are uncomfortable or like making those decisions or like going towards the stuff that's more difficult or having those conversations, those communications. And sure enough, when I go and I actually do that and press that stuff forward, everything's better. But I probably had a problem sometimes just like letting things drag on for too long and causing more damage than it would have if I just stepped in and was like, hey, like I have to take ownership of this sort of problem or issue here and can't just say, hey, it's that person's fault.
I did the same thing probably like 10 times over.
Yeah.
Just let things go for too long. Like, oh, this guy has these other good qualities and he's good at this and that. And what I learned from it was that not only was it not working for me, for us, for the company, it wasn't really working for them either.
Yeah.
And so I think each person has their own story. And sometimes one person's story is because they got fired from a company or their boss or their manager or whatever told them, look, man, you don't work hard. You show up late too often. You're out of here. And it's like that changes that person's life forever in a good way. You know, hopefully it's in a good way. And I've noticed that with a lot of people that we employed too. They went on and they did great on their own as well. So I think it's when you're in those positions, it's not easy to kind of put your foot down and make that decision, but it's the best thing for you. It's the best thing for your company. It's probably the best thing for them.
Yeah, it's always harder when it's like friends. There's people you have like a longer relationship with, where in your mind you kind of think like this person would want the best for this company, not just because of their job, but also because of the relationship that you've built. And it's hard to come to that conclusion to be like, okay, that's not the case, or maybe they just didn't know enough to make it the case. And then it's just making that decision that it's always a little tougher when it's someone that you consider like a friend.
Right.
So friends in business is always kind of a hard thing for sure, unless like they're like really in the right role, I think, which is not always easy to just find it and streamline it.
What made you start Zoo Culture?
Oh man. Well, originally, and I mean, maybe we talked about this before on one YouTube video, but originally I was never going to have a gym that had like members. It was just going to be a gym that I could film content at, because I was getting kicked out of gyms just making stupid content, like lifting girls or jumping on or whatever I was doing. And then, I started to realize like a lot of the reasons why I had my success, all of the reasons why I had my success other than me doing stuff, was because like people were accepting of it or like listening to it or getting something from it. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of want to have a space that I could have these people come and be a part of this with me. And so that turned into obviously the gym as I know it today. And it's also turned into like a really cool place for a bunch of people who are wanting to be creators or fitness influencers to also now become a part of it. So it's cool to see how it's evolved into like sort of like spawning ground of influencers or creators who are like in that space as well. So it's developed a lot more because like I said, originally it was just like, I was just going to use the space to make content, and it's cool to see what it's developed into for sure. And it's for so many reasons. And also it's just cool to go there and just meet people who have like, oh, I've watched you for 10 years. I've watched you for 6 years. I watched you for 4 years, 2 years, whatever it is, and share their sort of perspective of, I guess, what they've seen me talk about or what I've said and how it's affected them or, made them start a business. I can't tell you how many places I went where people are like, oh, I've been to a gym, really nice gym. And the guy's like, yeah, I opened this because I saw you open that. And,
Cool.
It's cool, man. That this, I guess, because I've been in it for so long and from like the inception pretty much of like a social media influencer, I've been, blessed a lot to help a lot of people. Obviously that comes with a bunch of negative as well.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I'm trying my best to try to not to talk about it as much, because like I realize reliving that sort of story is not really beneficial to like the story I want to continue to write. This the thing that I want to continue to like present and give to people or people who watch me. Because it's tough to like, because you have to find a balance. You do want to share it. You do want to explain what you've been through, because that's also how I got to where I'm at, is I was explaining my hardships. But there is a part of like really kind of moving forward and letting go of the things so that you can tell a whole new story.
I couldn't agree more. For my story is like, I just grew up kind of a dumb kid. I just, in school, like I was on like a 4th grade reading level. I just never did well in school, but I don't talk about that much anymore, because I'm like, well, that was my hardship. Like we all have like a hardship. Some people have it worse. Some people have it better. Some people are more in the middle. But for me, and also too, like that was, you like buy these stories, like that. I bought that story. Now I was just a kid, so maybe I didn't feel like I had a choice, but that's something that later on in life, as you get older, you have an opportunity to like not buy that story anymore and go, I was able to do this with my strength. I was able to do this with my body. I was able to do this and that. I learned a lot about nutrition. I learned a lot about strength training. I've learned the science of it, and I've learned all these different things. Maybe I'm not as dumb, or maybe I should just stop saying that I'm dumb.
Yeah.
Or maybe I should just stop thinking that, regardless of what anybody else said. And so I'm in a similar position where I don't really share. I don't talk about that much anymore, because it's an area that held me back for so long. And it's a story that I kind of wanted to keep, because I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that. there's a lot of can'ts and a lot of like won'ts and don'ts and should and shouldn'ts kind of all lumped in there because I thought I had this like ceiling. I couldn't go any higher than that ceiling. So I think it's important to try to, turn the page on some of this stuff.
Yeah. Because for me, I know mine's largely related to like, I don't want to say, I mean, I guess the word is like regret of not doing something sooner that I know I should have done. And like, I'm very hard on myself in a lot of ways. And I think like there's definitely this regret in a lot of situations that I've been through where I'm like, man, I wish I just had this conversation sooner. I wish I did this sooner. And then I wouldn't be, that's where I get kind of caught up sometimes where I'm like, but then it's like, what's the point? Like, what is the point of living in that? Because that's not getting me further.
Right.
So I think it's tough. I think it's hard for people sometimes to just like fully let go of things that like they feel wronged in or something was done dirty to them. Because I've gone through it in this dumbass industry with people who just like leverage you to all hell for their own benefit. And it is hard to fully let go of it, because I think when I think about it, I'm like, damn, certain people really took me for a ride, like took my time, like took a whole portion of my life and for a very long time and really benefited themselves and, did everything in their power to make me look as bad as possible because they knew what they had done. And it's like, that hurt for so many reasons. But then I think it hurt mostly because I think like, damn, they took 8 years of my life for their own benefit and then treated me like dirt. So for me, it's like letting go of that regret of not stopping it sooner. Not, you know what I'm saying? Not coming to a point of being like, why am I letting this happen? Or just wishing that and thinking that, oh no, this will be good regardless. Cause why would someone do me that dirty? And
do you have a different look on it now? Do you kind of think like, all those people that were doing that, they felt that was the appropriate way for them to act at the time?
Yes, I think that those people that I'm speaking to don't think about goodness the way that I think about goodness. I think they think about money, and that's the extent of how what they're focused on. And I think that in their mind, they did good because in their mind, money was all that mattered in that circumstance and in that situation.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because that wouldn't have been the same story that I was like understanding of through the relationship that I had with them. It wasn't like, I didn't think it was just money because I thought like in the sense of if we're all succeeding together, like why would you do me so dirty to just take for yourself when you were already getting so much benefit from it? And I guess it just comes down to the difference in personalities and people, like what people focus on and where they put their effort or what they think's truly important or what they think truly matters.
I've seen that same scenario happen to a bunch of different friends. And I remember one of my friends in particular, I remember talking to them and saying, why do you feel like you need these other people? And they actually like paused for a minute and they started to cry. And I was like, holy shit. Like, didn't mean to, spawn that emotion from you, but they just kind of felt like they couldn't do it on their own. And I was like, you ever looked at your own YouTube channel? You ever see how many views you have? You ever see how many comments there are? You ever see people they're all over your channel. They're watching it all the time. You have all these watch hours and so on. It's like, seems like you're successful enough to just kind of, go off on your own and do it. But I think, we're scared a little bit of some of the things that we're not familiar with. And when you start to get into some of the stuff that we've gotten into in fitness, you're thinking, yeah, I got the fitness side down, but I don't really know anything about business. So I'm gonna like partner up with some people. And if I partner up, like they'll take care of me. That part will be taken care of because I know how hard I'm gonna do the fitness side of it, and they'll probably be equally as passionate in business as I am about fitness. And a lot of times it doesn't pan out that way. It doesn't work out that way. But I think for a lot of people, if you're already making some headway with what you're doing, it's a great idea to start to think about, I wonder how I can kind of pull this off on my own, like to try to have it be your own idea, your own product, your own. The more that you can do that, the better, and especially the better it's going to be as you go on longer and longer.
You have the slingshot. Have you ever had anyone try to like take advantage of you in that situation or try to rip off your thing?
People do. I mean, people make versions of the slingshot. You know, it's something that like, pops up on Amazon all the time.
Yeah.
I have a United States patent, so taking care of the people in the United States and communicating with them that this is a patented product isn't that hard. And any of the other companies, they're just super small. And from a patent perspective, I actively have to defend my patent like X amount of times anyway. So they kind of just doing me a favor. I got to just shoot them a letter, and it's usually not a huge deal. Where it gets more complicated is I don't have like there's no such thing as like an international patent. You have to be registered in many different spots.
You know what's funny about that?
In order to hold your patent.
Dude, there's
many
I
countries.
swear there's a gym. Thank you, Sobi. There's a gym in in India that's like straight up zoo culture.
Holy shit. Really?
Like 100% ripped
Wow.
off my gym. Like I'm like, what the?
Is that Winstrol water?
No, I wish, dude.
Oh, yeah.
No, just Anavar for me. No, it's just some artisan.
How many milligrams Anavar? 50?
Shit, not enough.
Yeah, I've had people, rip off the products and stuff. It's more flattering than anything. I feel blessed that I was able to make an invention.
It's honestly cool. It's a good product.
Thank you.
It is.
I appreciate it. There have been other things that I've created or made that were harder to protect, like the hip circle and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
And then you see all these like booty bands, but I don't really care about any of that. I actually I want people to move. I want people to lift. I want people to exercise. So if people are able to make their own booty band and then other people buy it, and I think it's great. Like we need more people. Like we're losing. People are fat.
Dude,
We
I'm
need
coming
people
out with
to
a product
exercise.
called Shot Sling. So looks.
Oh, is that the one that attaches?
No, it's for the chest, dude. It's right here.
People are going to get jacked.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about the slingshot is that the current bench shirts are now made, and they look a lot like a slingshot. So it's just like more of like a shirt, but it's made out of like the slingshot material. And some guy recently benched like 1,400 pounds. I don't know if you ever saw that.
What?
Yeah, 1,300 pound or 1,400 pound bench press.
What the fuck? I have to see that video.
I can't remember. Like Kolb is his last
What
name.
the fuck does that even look like?
OLB.
Well, like,
Dude, it's wild. They can barely fit, kilo plates, those red 55s.
yeah.
I mean, there's a ton on each side. There must be like, I don't know, 10.
Well, I really want to see that video.
It's wild. And he's a strong dude, like everyone's like, oh, it's a shirt or whatever.
How
but
much do you think he does outside of the shirt?
he probably can move around 5 plates for some reps and stuff.
Well, that's
like that.
insane.
Yeah,
That's
that's
like
a huge carryover. Yeah, it's doing a lot, but equipped lifting is just different.
Yeah, I know.
I squatted 1,080 in a squat suit, and a belt and knee wraps, and then my best squat out of that was I did 705 in the gym. I forget what I even hit in
At
the
what body
meet,
weight?
677 or something in the meet.
What body weight were you there? Because you were big.
Yeah. My heaviest for powerlifting was 330, but I did my best between 270. Powerlifting is amazing because it has a 275 weight class and a 308 weight class, and then there's a super heavyweight. In the UFC, it's like anyone above 265 or anyone above whatever the John Jones weight class used to be, that 205. I think anybody above 205 is in the
Heavyweight, yeah.
heavyweight.
Had you ever had any health scares?
I've had a bunch of like things happen over the years, maybe 2 or 3 different things. So one day I used to do chain suspended good mornings. I would do a good morning with a cambered bar, and there's tons of videos of this on YouTube. And it would be suspended from a rack and it'd be in these chains, swinging in these chains. So I could wedge myself underneath there, and then good morning the weight up. I think I would often use 5, 6, sometimes even close to 7 plates on that exercise, which is a killer exercise. A good morning is a brutal movement.
Wait, a bottom of a good morning to the top with like, 700 pounds?
Yeah.
How high of a good morning?
Sometimes it would be as high as my hip. So it'd be so low that I'd have to like duck. I'd have to have my.
You're doing this to improve just like your squat strength?
It's
your
because I
deadlift
squatted
strength?
like. So I squatted. I called it lifting like, because when I squatted and I came up out of the bottom of squat, I'd round over a lot. So I was
so you
like,
wanted to correct it.
yeah, I was like, screw this. I'm going to just grind them out that way. So I'm just going to kind of learn how to do this and have my back intentionally in flexion where I'm slightly rounded, and I'm going to like power these weights out. And so it's something I worked on that for a while, and it worked amazing. Like my squat went from 942 to 1,080.
You never your back up on that?
Well, here's what happened. I didn't mess my back up, luckily, but I did a good morning one day, and something just, I got done with the rep, and something just kind of hurt. Like, you know, you have a belt on and everything. Something kind of hurt like in my ribs, and I was like, man, that's kind of weird. I didn't think much of it. After the gym, after the workout, the pain got a little worse, and the next morning, I sneezed. And it hurt like crazy. It like brought me right down to my knees. And it was, you know, in my side. And I was like, holy fuck, what was that? So I kind of shake it off. And then I'm like, you know, trying to breathe. And my breathing is like a little short. I'm like I can't get quite enough air. And I'm like, oh, it's probably okay. It's probably just some, you know, rib thing or whatever. Anyway, the day goes on. And it's now like the evening time. My wife went to like a musical. I don't go to musicals. I told her that when we got together. I said, I will never go to a musical with you.
Was you feel awkward or what?
Yeah, I don't want to go to a musical.
Yeah.
I don't get it. So anyway, I had to call her while she's at the musical and have her come home and bring me to the hospital because it just felt like I was breathing through a straw.
What the?
So I felt like where the pain was, now I can kind of remember a little more clearly, where the pain was more like in the upper rib, more like on the left side. And I'm like, is this a rib thing or is this my heart? You know, what is going on here? Like, this feels like I can't breathe. I got shortness of breath. Anyway, I went to the hospital. Everything checked out to be okay. They just think that I slightly tore something in my ribs. I had another incident many, many years later preparing for the only marathon that I ever did, the Boston Marathon. And I was out on a run and I just, you know, runners call it bonking. I just started to feel like shit while I was on this run. I was running faster than I ever have before. I was doing these intervals. I felt great. I actually never felt that good on a run before. I'm like, this is awesome. I get into about the 8th set. I think I'm supposed to do about 12 sets for the day. I do the 8th set, and all of a sudden I'm just starting to really feel like shit. It wasn't just like nauseous. It wasn't just like, oh, you're overtrained. It just felt really weird. And I don't know if it's like pre-workout or ketones or like, you know, I took a mixture of stuff before I went and worked out. I took some kratom and I just wasn't feeling good. And I was like, well, I still have a few more sets. I was like, let me try. So I tried to go and my legs they weren't under me. Then I started feeling like kind of dizzy. And then as I'm walking, I'm like, okay, well, you can either try to finish this and maybe die out here or you can walk your over to Starbucks and see, like, because I thought my blood sugar was crashing. Like, maybe your blood sugar's messed up, which doesn't really make any sense because I had carbs before I worked out and everything. So anyway, I go to Starbucks, start downing some juice that they have there, and then I start like shaking. And a guy kind of noticed I was shaking. I was super pale. The guy came over and sat next to me. He's like, "What's up, man?" He's like, you don't look so well. You okay? I was like, no, man, I don't know what's going on. And my body's like, I'm just trembling. I started to shake so much that I couldn't even, the cup that I was drinking out of, I put a straw in it to try to sip out of it. And I could barely get my hand to my face accurately enough to use the straw.
Yeah.
And luckily my wife was in the area. So she came over to Starbucks. Now this is becoming a big thing. Like, everybody in my town, everybody in Davis, they know who I am. They see me running all the time. People cheer for me when I'm running down the street like I'm Rocky Balboa or something.
Yeah.
And so this is just like insanely embarrassing, but I'm feeling like so I'm not even noticing any of that. My wife comes and I kind of tell her what's going on. I was like, I think we need to call 911 because I think there's something going on with my blood sugar. And I was like, I can't wait in a waiting room. Like I need help right away. So she And then when I'm talking, I'm like I'm talking like I'm like 105 years old.
The
Like it's really hard to talk, but my brain's still good. Like I'm still know what's going on. Anyway, all this juice and stuff that I drank, I barf everywhere in Starbucks. I tried to have my wife grab like a garbage can, but she couldn't find one that didn't have like a lid thing on it, you know? And so I just puke everywhere. The ambulance comes.
What did you think was happening? The blood sugar?
I thought for sure it was low blood sugar, but when the ambulance came and when they pricked the finger and stuff and they checked my glucose, it was like 540. So my blood glucose was spiked. You know, maybe your blood glucose is at 80 or 90 or something like that.
Yeah, it was way up.
But it was at 540. And I could barely stand up and get on the gurney. They wheel my ass out of Starbucks. And then they check my blood again when I was in the emergency vehicle, and now it's at like 400. So my blood was already starting to like come back down. I never learned exactly what happened on that day, and I never learned like what it was. So I have had some weird scares.
They check you out EKG and everything?
Yeah, they did all that stuff. Both times at EKG, fully checked out the heart. I get blood work done regularly.
Yeah.
So I've never had anything. I never broke a bone. I've never had
like
a surgery.
Panic attack or something.
Yeah, I've never had a surgery. Well, in that case, it's hard to tell exactly what happened, but some people said that sometimes when you run or sometimes you do something strenuous, sometimes your blood sugar can be high, which I've never heard of before. But my blood sugar was high, and I did more damage to myself by drinking more of those juices and jacked it up even higher and made myself even sicker. But I was up for, I don't know, man, like 6 or 8 hours, and finally got out of the hospital and everything.
You don't know, so you don't know what caused it.
Don't know exactly what happened. But health-wise, I mean, in general, I've had those two things happen and never have had anything happen, never had any like real injuries with lifting or, you know, I fell with 1,085 squat, and that fucked me up for a while. But nowadays I feel really good. I run almost every day.
Yeah.
I'm working on being more mobile and working on jumping and working on some shit like that because I still want to be able to do cool.
What through everything like you've trained and I guess just learned in general in life and in training, what do you think is, I don't know, the most, I don't know, I would say like the most important thing that you've learned as far as like working through, I guess, the difficulties, whether it be life or training?
I think it's important to have a lot of patience with stuff, and maybe some of the opposite of what's shared out there about, because I do think you can very easily work way too hard. You can very easily put too much in, and I'm not necessarily just talking about like overtraining, but I'm talking about just the overall amount of work that you put in a given week or in a given month. You can certainly overdo it. And what I see a lot of people, I've had so many different people on my podcast, and when sometimes people come in, I see the way they walk, I see the way they move, and I'm like, okay, they are older than me or they're similar age, but I'm like, I don't want to be that stiff, you know, I don't want to be like that. So that's something that has helped me over the years is I've made some changes. I made some dramatic changes. I did powerlifting, and when I was powerlifting, that's what I did. I focused in on that, honed in on that. I did bodybuilding for a little bit, honed in on that. And then now with running, I'm working on like running, being healthier in general. I do realize that PEDs throw a monkey wrench into that whole thing. I don't necessarily think that taking testosterone, I don't necessarily think it's the safest thing in terms of like your blood work and your cardiovascular. There are safe ways of doing it. I don't always subscribe to that. Sometimes I take a little extra.
Yeah.
But I do other things to kind of counteract that because I like testosterone. I love the motivation of all of it. But just to get back to answer your question, I think patience and persistence, and you may be like this today, you may be doing this today, you might be this way right now, but what's it going to look like 2 years from now or 3 years from now? If you consistently are doing these exercises, how's that going to look over the course of a handful of years? It's going to benefit you drastically. It's just you're not going to notice a whole lot in the beginning. And I think one more thing to add to that is if you're kind of just starting out or you're trying to get yourself locked into this stuff, do your best to be a little bit more performance based rather than just physique based, because that part's hard and it takes a long time to learn that. And most likely most of the people that you'll know that
learn the aesthetic part.
No, learn
the strength part.
Learn the
functional.
Learn the performance side of things, like where you're trying to be able to do an extra set, or you're trying to be able to condense your workout, have less rest, do more weight, be a little more flexible, do an exercise with a longer range of motion. I think that these things are really good pillars to have. And then what you'll notice is that your aesthetics are going to get better.
Yeah. Do you think that people overcomplicate like functional workouts? Like, there's obviously squat, bench, deadlift,
It's
right?
a huge movement right now is all these movement people. Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's like, do you think it's somewhat overdone for content almost, in a sense, where it's like some of these things could be just, you could do a good morning, you could do a squat, you can get these things from it instead of like doing this movement, that movement, that movement, that movement to get like the same effect.
You're 100% right. I mean, bench, squat, and deadlift are the big three for a reason.
Yeah.
They are really powerful. And if you bench, squat, and deadlift, it could probably, and this is just potentially, but it could most likely make, my daughter is 16, she plays volleyball. All of her and all her friends would benefit tremendously from some squatting, some benching, some deadlifting. But what would a coach, think for them to do? A coach would have them jump, but they jump all the time. And so it's not like jumping wouldn't be beneficial. Someone teaching them how to jump, when to jump, someone teaching them some plyos and stuff like that. But as you pointed out, you didn't really work on it a ton.
No.
You got yourself stronger. And your strength in regard to your body weight is going to be something that's going to really improve movement and athleticism. And it's something that's not talked about enough. I also think it will help a lot with longevity. The easier it is for you to move around your body when your own body feels really light to you, and you can do 10 pull-ups and you can, do 100 yards of lunging and all these different things, or you can bear crawl and do all these different movements. I mean, it's going to be a lot easier, I think, for your body to stay in shape and for your body to stay in good condition. I do think that a lot of fitness it gets conflated and confusing, because if you follow people on social media, most of the time those people are showing you what they're good at. Occasionally someone's like, look how transparent I am, I'm going to show you this failure.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see that, but
That's good.
most of the time you're going to see like the flexible guy or the flexible girl is going to be showing you an act of flexibility. Most of the time the bench press guy is going to be showing you him, bench pressing, that. And so I kind of like to look at everything with a little bit of a critical eye and think. I think a lot of times people see something on social media and they think, oh, I want to do that. Or that looks really cool, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I think what you should recognize is just that that's a skill set, and that's cool that you're going to use that as an inspiration or motivation to do something. But you should also recognize that person may have been doing that for a while. A person that's benching 405 for 10 reps, there's absolutely no way. There's no way to bench 405 for 10 reps without lifting for 10 years. Like, it's just that's it. 10 years. It takes 10 years to be good at anything, and it probably takes another 10 after that to be great.
Yeah.
10-year minimum.
All right, guys, quick little rush for the podcast, transcendcompany.com. Guys, if you guys are looking for a place to get your blood work anywhere in the United States, you guys can literally click the link in the bio right now. Blood work, they'll send the papers directly to your house. You go to a lab near you, you basically get to take your blood, they're gonna put your blood and they're gonna give you what you need that's gonna help you better your body. I promise you guys. They've got the best doctors in the world. They got everything you could think of that you'd ever want. I promise you, If you have ever thought about doing something, if you're doing something, if you're dabbling in we'll call it the arts right now, if you're doing it at all and you do not get your blood work done regularly, you are making a massive, massive mistake. Okay? I couldn't encourage you more like to get your blood work done, because it can be a problem for a lot of people if you're not doing it with the right way, with the right sort of care. So go to transcendcompany.com/raw talk. Check it out right now. If you guys have ever thought about it, whatever you need, they have you, they got you, they're gonna hold it down. But at the same time, guys, it's very, very important if you're ever gonna dive into something like this, or if you're already in it, you need to know where your levels are at. So click the link below, get your blood work done. And even if you're like, yo, I've never even wanted to do anything, TRT or hormones or anything, but you've wanted to know what's going on inside your body right now, because it's important for you to know, because that's how you're gonna be able to optimize yourself on the outside, whether it be like a certain body goal, a certain business goal. Everything is gonna come down to what's going on the inside. If you don't know what's wrong, like what's causing you to not be able to get enough sleep, what's causing you to feel sort of lack of energy, what's causing you to feel low sex drive, whatever it is, a lot of these things can be fixed without hormones. And just knowing what's going on with your blood work is gonna be able to help you do that. So go to transcendcompany.com/raw talk right now. If you have ever wondered like, yo, why do I feel like this? Why do I feel like that? And they got your back. Let's get back into the podcast. Yeah, but everyone wants that shit right now. They're like, where's that pill?
Take those steroids.
That's what they think, man. It's funny. I think I don't know. It's the confusion in it, like the ill perception. The I don't know. People just I don't know why people think that it is just that simple, especially when it comes to steroids. It's very much like maybe because in sports, like historically, it's like people say it's cheating, this and that, which like when bodybuilding and all these strength sports, it's like literally just a part of the sport, you know? And just people have that misconception that it's like, you know, I can't even tell you how many people that I know who have gotten on and then they're like, oh, this isn't at all what I thought it would be like.
They got almost nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Because they probably didn't put much into it.
Yeah. It's like always comes back to that same thing of like just the effort you're putting into the thing every day.
I do think that testosterone is a wonderful like motivator.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good drug in those terms, and it can be something that for someone that feels a little kind of wishy-washy about training and those kinds of things, it can be like they call it. Sometimes people are like, this person just needs like a shot in the arm, right? You hear that. It's like, yeah, a little shot of testosterone might boost somebody in a good direction. But
I always wonder, could testosterone be a therapy? Sorry, interrupting you, for like depression.
There are people that do that. I know a guy who's a clinician who utilizes it, but he won't talk to me on my podcast because it's like, you know, it's not. I guess it's probably studied a little bit. Maybe it's a little more acceptable now. You know who gets depressed when they take testosterone and they come off of it?
Who?
Everybody.
Yeah.
I think everybody gets wiped out by that. Like if your levels were pretty high and you were cruising pretty good, and you come off it, you got to be really careful.
Yeah.
You got to be really cautious. I came off years ago. I've been on steroids like on and off for 25 years, or since I was 25. I'm 47, so 20 something years. And when I had my daughter Quinn, I came off everything for a few months, and then, you know, got my wife pregnant, and then just went right back to it. But in that time span when I came off, I've never even felt, when someone talked about depression, I didn't know what they were talking about. That's how raw it was to me. I never really got it. I never really understood what anyone was talking about. And I just felt like crap for a handful of days. I was upset. I was also a little angry, which is really rare for me too. I don't usually get mad. And so I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I was like, oh, all these side effects of steroids that you hear so much about, they seem to hit you pretty hard when you're off of them. And I got acne too. I don't ever have acne.
Yeah.
It's like all this stuff happened to me when I was off, and I was like, holy. And yeah, I was super like melancholy, like you said, like just numb.
Yeah.
And I've only felt that similar numbness one other time in my life, and it was a couple years ago when my mom died. When my mother passed away, I told my wife, I'm like, I don't know how to explain this to you. I don't understand what I'm going through, but I'm just probably going to be a little weird for a little while. And she's like, well, that's fine. You're allowed to be weird. Your mom died, you know, and you were really close to her. And I was like, yeah, I don't know how to describe this, but I just feel so numb. I don't seem to care about anything one way or the other at the moment. And luckily for me, just over time, it sort of started to, you know, work itself out. But that was I would rather have like a feeling, you know, because like a feeling you sort of know what to do with, but that middle ground, that kind of gray area was just, it was terrible.
Yeah, real depression is, I think that's what real depression is.
You can't, it's like hard to pinpoint it or label it.
Yeah, it's like a feeling of nothing. And that's like a scary thing, because yeah, like you said, I'd rather feel upset, or I'd rather feel sad than like completely indifferent to anything and everything.
My brother Mike was bipolar, and he committed suicide as well.
Yeah. And
my brother, he utilized performance enhancing drugs, but he was real like up and down with just about everything. And when he killed himself, he was at a treatment center, and you know, I believe that he was off testosterone at the time. And they were giving him like other medications and stuff like that too, but he always seemed to have a rough go of it when it came to that sort of stuff. He was also addicted to drugs. And what had happened with him is they said, we can't give you treatment unless you're sober. And he's like, but he needed treatment for being bipolar on top of needing treatment for, they're separate things. You're bipolar and you're addicted to drugs. Like you need treatment for both.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't treat his bipolar disorder unless he was clean. He's like, I can't get clean because I'm bipolar. Like, what part of this do you not understand? So it was always super frustrating with him. Mental health, I think, still hasn't moved far enough along, even nowadays. But this is, you know, about 10 years ago when some of this happened. And he was always conflicted, and he was always real up and down with his emotions. And that's what happens when someone's bipolar. But I think on top of that, it was exaggerated because he took hormones, because he took testosterone.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think at that time he was off of everything. And so not only was he like, you know, manic with his mood would go up and down, but I think now he was way down, which sucks too, because it seemed like at the time, in communicating with him, I mean, I talked to him the day before, and he told me not to be a. That's he pretty much told me that all the time. Being my oldest brother,
good advice.
Beat me up all the time. But I talked to him the day before, and he just, you know, he seemed like up, you know, like not. He didn't seem up like manic in that direction either. He just seemed like positive. I was like, this is cool, man. This is a good spot for him to be in. And then the next day, the reason why he told me not to be a is because I told him that I was going to power lift the next day, and I was going to break this record that was in the USPF, this federation that was around at the time. I don't even think anybody competes in it anymore. And I was telling him, I said it's going to come down to the deadlift. He's like, yeah, you're kind of a with your deadlift. And he's like, hey, when it comes down to it, he's like, you know, make sure you kind of stick that deadlift. You know, make sure you push all the way through the whole meet. And he's like, I'm sure you'll break the total record and stuff. And yeah, I competed, I did the meet, and I broke the record, felt amazing. And then the next day, my dad called me, and, you know, I think I had run that scenario through my head a bunch, that I was going to get that I was going to get a phone call or something like that where he's, you know, I received other phone calls where he was like going to jail because he was violent with somebody or whatever in those situations. But, you know, I still have that. Like I have almost like PTSD over it. Like I can still hear my dad's voice saying, your brother, he's dead. You know, I was just like, it's just a horrible thing for a family to go through. Mental illness, addiction to drugs. And you're just seeing so many people now that are dealing with both. And it sucks, and I hope that I hope for some people they find some comfort in some other things. They find some comfort in getting outside and lifting. And I realize that those things can seem like total bull things when you're behind and when you're stuck. Like I get it. Like if I told my brother, yo, let's go for a walk, it's gonna be good for you to get sunlight, he would have said, fuck you.
Right.
Like, and again, I don't pretend to understand the way that he felt, but I can only imagine. It must be crippling.
Yeah. How did your brother take his life?
When someone like that dies, a really unfortunate thing is, I remember when I went to the place where he killed himself, I went to this treatment center, and there's a bunch of names on the wall, and I'm like, what are these names, And someone like, oh, it's all the people that died over the years that came here. I was like, holy fuck. It's like a World War II memorial or something, with all the names on it. I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. And there was like tons of names there. But my brother died, they think, because he was huffing like dust off, something that you use for like your computer. And I think a lot of times when people like that die, not that I think personally that there was like foul play. I just think that maybe they're not going to like investigate that thoroughly, because it's like we're at a drug treatment center and we are wheeling somebody out of here, every month or whatever the rate is, And my mother, she always kind of felt that he was killed. I mean, I don't really necessarily think that, but the point is when I think about that, he was always rolling the dice anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't really think too much about how he died. I like to try to think a little bit more about how he lived.
Right.
And then even when I think about that, there's like not a ton of positives that I can reflect on, because he had mental illness. And people that have dealt with mental illness before or have it in their family, they know what I'm talking about, and it's really hurtful, Because my brother, he was my idol, He taught me how to lift, he taught me how to fight, he taught me so many things. I learned so many things from him. The only way I'm able to sit here and kind of talk about it like plainly and stuff is, number one is I've run through this so many times. I've talked about it openly many times, and that's been cathartic. But he also has said many times that he just didn't want to be here. And so when I think about that, life was very, very difficult for him for whatever reason. And for me to want him here is almost like, for me to want him here is almost like a selfish thing. Because he couldn't take it anymore. He didn't like, you're talking about like kind of people backstabbing you and stuff. He hated that. That stuff like broke his heart so much. He was the kind of guy, he wore his like heart and his emotion on his sleeves.
Yeah.
And if you told him something and then you went back on it, it didn't matter what it was. It could be the smallest thing. He would not understand that. It would really make him super frustrated. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And he was a big reason why I'm sitting here today with you talking to you, is because he got me into lifting in the first place.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. I just losing family members, and it's I guess kind of at some point a complete inevitable, obviously, but I guess losing them in ways that is just like, you talk about it being selfish to want him in your life. It's like, is it though? Because
I want him here because I love him, but
Yeah.
I know how hard life was for him.
yeah,
And so that's what I mean. It's like, I don't want him, to have to agonize just to keep me at peace.
how do you get? It's like, it's so tough because it's like, how could you have gotten someone to change their perspective on life? You can't. That's the thing, when I think about my dad. Oh man, I thought I wasn't gonna do it. Thought I had it.
It happens to me all the time. You know, I remember going to trade shows and just randomly someone would come up and they're like, hey man, you know, I listen to you. I follow you. I'm a fan. I have mental illness in my life too. I'm sorry about your brother. You know, they're still saying it many, many years later. And it's just something will hit me sometimes, or I'll be in my car and a song will come on
Yeah.
that he was cranking. You know, my brother he was the coolest guy in town. He was my hero. Was 6 years older than me. You know, so when you're a little kid and you get to kind of be around like bigger kids and stuff, it's everything to you.
Yeah.
So the music he'd listen to, the things he would do, I was into all of it. He loved pro wrestling. He loved football. I loved pro wrestling. I loved football. It's like whatever he was into, I was super excited about and super into. So sometimes now, even just watching football or he was into pro wrestling, like I'll be watching a wrestling match and I'll want to grab my phone and call him because I never deleted his number.
Yeah.
Like I'd never had it in my heart to get rid of his number in my phone. I'm like, no, I'm keeping that in there. And so it's just these little things like that. You're like, no, it's not going to get me today. It's not going to, you know, but
Yeah.
I think crying over it, I think is healthy and powerful.
You know, it's what I was gonna say. What's so interesting to me is like I have the perspective now that I have in my life that it's so difficult. That like I only have partly because of him not being here. So it's like
That's wild. Yeah.
almost entirely because it's like I think in my head I wish I could, like how could I have, or how could someone have, obviously I couldn't have been the kid that I was at 6. I didn't know any of this that I know now, but it's like you wish that you could have showed them like a different side of things, but I don't know. It's so difficult right now. It's weird because I only know the different side of things because I was forced to see it a different way, and for everything that I've learned now, I have the perspective that it's like, damn, I wish I could have given that to that person, but I only have that perspective because of what I went through. So it goes back to the whole thing we were talking about earlier about like why people do this and that and all these things is because they only know what they know to that point in their life. And I know something that I wish I could have given to someone, but I wouldn't have known it if I didn't go through it, you know. And he didn't have the people around him or enough know-how to be like, okay, I can try to look at things differently even though this is happening to me right now, to know that there's still so much more for me. Or for me, maybe directly things in my life are like almost like I felt like I had to prove to my father or to people in my life that I'm good enough, I'm going to be good enough. But that only spawned because of what I went through that was the passing, right?
Right.
So it's like I could sit here and talk about it all day about how I wish it was the thing that he could have known, but that's also just life. Like you can't. You kind of just know what you know at that point that you know it, and you make your decision based on it. And you know, that's what he chose. So it's just weird, like sadness, but at the same time, sort of like, I don't know, joy that I have around it that like, at least I know this now, at least I can give it forward, you know?
Do you want to be a father?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be your opportunity to show that perspective that you're talking about. Be your opportunity to, you know, it's so hard to just think about your worst day. Think about, you know, anybody listening to this right now, just put yourself in that spot. Think about the worst day of your life. And then just imagine if that just went on every day, or it felt like that, or that was your interpretation of the day. That every day was kind of a cloudy day. I think sometimes that's what happens when people have a mental health issue. I think a lot of the days are like that, and they they just feel like, and a lot of times people try to get help and it's like, what kind of help can they get? They're just going to get pills. They might get some treatment, and treatment can probably benefit a lot of people. But even treatment, like we said earlier, it's like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of like digging through your soul. And a lot of people in general don't like doing that. It's like, it's almost a little similar, like putting off a surgery that you could use that would probably be helpful, but you just don't want to get, because you don't want to, like, you want to be up for a bunch of months.
Yeah,
like
time.
And for some people, it also might take, like, literally someone might have to like not work for like a year and do all this like deep work and talk to a therapist and get outside and do like all this stuff for themselves, for them to start to feel strong enough and start to feel good enough to be heading in the right direction. And who has that time? You know, who's able to kind of do that? So I think, you know, being able to show people perspective, you must have had this happen. I've had this happen a bunch, where people come up to you and they like give you a big hug and they're like, you saved my life. Your show saved my life. Or I'm like, oh, holy shit. How? Like, that's amazing. But some people, they found powerlifting and they found something through me that they could anchor themselves to. And that was something that allowed them just to get through the next day. And I think that's something that you and I can do pretty easily. We can share like enough stuff with people to where, you know, maybe they don't want to do all the different things that we do, but if they can find some satisfaction and they can feel better about themselves, ultimately that's what so much of this is about. It's about feeling better about yourself, being able to build confidence, being able to have something sustainable that is repeatable. Because you can also get so deep into fitness where you don't even feel that good about it. Like, you can go in the gym and deadlift 700 pounds and be like, oh, I wish I deadlifted 715. You know, or you can get yourself super shredded and like, I'm pretty good, but like I got a little fat over here.
Yeah.
You know, so you can get yourself into these kind of weird pitfalls, but you'll have to get yourself to a spot where you at least feel way better about yourself than you do having a lot of negative interpretations about yourself.
Yeah. I guess it's why do you think it's so difficult for most people to like start making the change to like figure these things out?
I think it starts with like being uncomfortable. It starts in a place of fear. They don't know how to do it. My wife actually, she started working out with a group of women. We set up a gym at my house and stuff like that. And she just invited a bunch of friends and family. And now there's like 12 or 13 people there working out all at the same time. And they all kind of said the same thing. Like they like lifting. They're loving these training sessions. They're having a great time with it. And when I talked to them, like, oh, why weren't you, lifting before? Like, kind of, and they just said they didn't know what to do. Like, they felt dumb. They felt stupid about it. They felt too new. It's just like out of their wheelhouse. They don't get it. They don't understand it. And so now that they have people that they click with, and that's what I would advise for a lot of people to try to start with. But I think, again, it's tough because if you think about your cousin or your uncle or so-and-so that runs on the weekend or whatever, like, we're all kind of maniacs, or at least we appear to be kind of crazy with what we do because we love it. Like, oh, I'm not gonna call Bradley. Like, he's way too advanced. I don't want to. But if a family member or a friend reached out and said, man, I need to put more time in myself. Would you mind if I tagged along with you this week? I'll just show up at the gym whenever you show up, and I'll just do what you're saying or do what you're doing. And you'd be like, yeah, come on. Like, you're not going to be like, bro, you can't even come close to hanging with the amount of weight that I lift.
I think, what I mean? Yeah, it seems like because you can't, to get something done difficult, right? Or training, whatever, right? You got to kind of love it a little bit. But I think for most people to first start something, like, they're not probably loving it because they probably had an issue with it in the first place, right? Because it's like they're overweight or they're behind. So it's almost like you have to learn how to love the difficulty.
Right.
You have to learn how to love that thing that's going to be hard for you to do. And like, not just training, whatever it is. Like you have to think about, like I said, I keep talking about this for some reason, is learning how to like fall in love with something hard to do. Like you should be trying to do things that are hard.
When you go to work out sometimes, is it hard?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard,
Yeah.
right? And you start talking to your buddy. I mean, you own the gym and everybody knows you there and everything, right? I'm sure you've had this happen. You probably have gone there and not lifted a weight.
Oh yeah, tons.
But you had full intention the night before or the day
Yeah,
of. You're like, man, I'm
even
gonna go
going
there.
there.
I'm gonna go in there and throw some weights around.
Yeah.
You're all pumped up, and then that's not what happens. You kind of talk yourself out of it. I don't think people realize that happens to us frequently. It happens to us quite a bit. And so while we're sharing this message of like doing something hard, it's not really that hard. There's a difficulty level to getting started with it. But if you're someone that exercises, even if you just, go to the gym a couple times a week right now, if you do like 3 sets of lat pull downs, there is just no possible way. I challenge you to do it. Go to the gym, do 3 sets of lat pull downs and leave. There's no way that you're only going to do one exercise for 3 sets. It's impossible. So talk yourself into like, if I just do that, that's going to encourage me to do more.
Yeah.
I oftentimes tell people, do more, be more. Motion is the lotion. Like once you get moving, once you get your body going, then you're going to be encouraged to do more. And you might see someone else there. Hey, mind if I work in with you? And you just like it's almost like social awkwardness of like, kind of breaking the ice. Almost every single time that you ever work out, no matter how much you love working out, there's going to have to be a little bit of an icebreaker in there.
Yeah.
So I like to tell people, just convince yourself to do one body part.
Yeah, that's a good ass. That's
Convince yourself to do one body part and maybe even take it back from even there and only one body part and only one exercise. I'm going to go in, I'm going to do lateral raises. I guarantee that it's impossible. You would not, I mean, it's not impossible. Someone could do it, right? And they could be like, I did that.
yeah.
Right? But you get my point. It's like, it's hard.
You got to just get started.
It's like eating a potato chip. It's hard once you start.
Potato chips are so good, dude.
God,
That's
like
like
some
my chips are my biggest weakness, man.
Sweets or no?
Sweets, chips. I like.
Oh, you got
that
all
shit.
kinds of weaknesses.
But chips are the worst though. Like if I get a
Yeah.
bag of chips,
What kind of chips?
bro, jalapeno chips, man. They're just the best chips in the world. If I crack a bag of chips open, I don't care if the bag is like Costco size. I just eat the whole thing.
I saw a Lay's potato chip commercial that and Gronkowski was eating the chips and he said it's like winning the Super. It tastes like winning the Super Bowl. God, it's like that's pretty good. They do taste really good.
God, that
Do you-
marketing's insane.
Do you dip them in anything?
No,
That's
normally
getting to be
not.
way too fat, yeah.
Yeah, that's when it's like, dude, what am I doing? Like, who am I? You see me dipping chips into like
Yeah.
cheese, I've
The
done
next
it.
thing is for you to be like on the
Yeah.
sidewalk with a cup,
Just-
asking for money.
Bum. I'm a bum now. Like just dipping. Like imagine me dipping jalapeno chips in like nacho cheese. Oh, that sounds so good though.
It does sound good. Not a jalapeno chips.
The kettle ones. You know that green bag?
Oh, those are incredible.
Yeah.
The salt and vinegar, I like those a lot too.
You know what? When I was young, I used to eat a lot of salt and vinegar chips and drink soda, and then I just like can't do it anymore. I can't eat salt and vinegar no more. I just had I saw like completely all the way out. I've done too much.
I've always loved, probably my favorite thing. I saw a commercial for it yesterday, and it almost threw me off my diet. I saw a commercial for peanut butter cups. I'm like, that is I don't know what it is. I love peanut butter cups. I'm such a fat kid.
All right, guys, quick notes for the podcast, Manscaped. Listen, Valentine's Day is coming up, and you do not want to be caught lacking. I promise you. Trim yourself. They got everything you need to trim yourself, clean yourself up down there, up here, whatever it is, they have it all. They got what you need to smell good, to look good, to feel good. You're going to perform your best. You're going to feel your best. That's what's very important, right? So listen, Valentine's Day is coming up. I promise you, I got you. Manscaped has your back. I've been talking about this for, I don't know, the last like 6-7 months on the podcast. I literally use all these products. I might have forgot the nose trimmer recently, but the nose trimmer's lit. I keep the beard lined up with it. Don't look right now. I'm a little bit dusty because I've been in Vegas going crazy, but as soon as I get back, boom, boom, hitting the spots up, nice lined up. But Manscaped has always had my back. They have some of the greatest products, really, really like convenient to your door, everything in a nice little box. But yeah, don't skip out. Be ready for Valentine's Day. If you guys want to check it out right now, you can get 20% off everything with code Raw Talk at manscaped.com plus free shipping. Again, that's 20% off everything, code Raw Talk right now at checkout plus free shipping. Do it. Your Valentine's Day date will thank you.
When you were your fattest, what was like the thing you ate the most?
Burritos. Yeah. Giant burritos that were like the size of like an infant baby, you know, like when someone was taking the baby home from the hospital. It was like, you know what I mean? It was just massive. Double chicken, double up on the rice, get that protein in. And I was like, I'm getting my protein in, you know? And I was just.
How much are you eating a day, you think?
3 or 4 chins. I would eat, I'd probably eat about 5 times a day.
Yeah.
It was mainly at night. So I would eat sort of like regular-ish. I'd have kind of like a regular breakfast. I'd eat some eggs and some stuff like that. And it wasn't insanely unhealthy, but it was at night. I was like, I need the extra calories. I'm trying to get big. You know, I would do all that stuff. And it worked. I mean, it did help me to get stronger, but at a certain point, I just got like big and fat.
Yeah.
I got big, fat, and red and unhealthy. You've seen the pictures, and you've even knew me, you know, through some of that. Just my face.
That blood pressure was crazy.
Oh, yeah. Blood pressure was high. I remember my blood pressure was so high that I couldn't even. So people told me to donate blood. They're like, oh, when you're on steroids, you should donate blood.
Yeah.
And so I went to donate blood a bunch of times, but I couldn't give my own blood away. Like, it's too radioactive, bro. Now, it was because my blood pressure was too high. They wouldn't take it. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Damn.
That was hefty. Hard to wipe my.
What was the worst part about that? And what was obviously the best part? It's going to be you were strong. What was the worst part about it?
The worst part about it ended up being the habits that I developed, you know, being that big, being that heavy.
Yeah.
And obvious stuff like, I mean, look, just your day to day, everything's different. Everything's compromised. You know, we put 100-pound or we put an 80-pound weight vest on you or something like that. Like, it's going to slow you down. It's going to be annoying, right? And so having the extra weight, lugging that weight around, traveling was, you know, you sit in a seat on the plane. Man. You can't, you know, I was like, oh, it was kind of great getting myself big, but now I can't fit anywhere. But the worst part was the habits, because I always kind of felt like, all right, I'm going to do this. I put a lot of time and effort into this for about 5 years. You know, I power lifted from the time I was like 12, competed in it for a long time, and then played football and did a bunch of other stuff in between. But lifting was like the annoying girlfriend that would always come back. Like, it was just, it was never going to go away. It was meant to be. And so I think it was probably maybe around 30 is when I kind of decided, like, oh, I'm going to go all in on this, and I'm going to do it for like 5 years as hard as I can.
Yeah. And
so I just did anything and everything to get as big as I could. It wasn't acceptable. You know, the mission was to get as big and as strong as possible. And if it meant that I had to gain weight, then I did. But in that process of gaining that weight, I gained a lot of bad habits, and those habits were hard to spin out of.
I see.
So when I started to try to like diet again, like, that's why I've been a big proponent of low carb style diets, is because I got so addicted to carbs, not necessarily like, not just sugar, but like chips and pizza and bread and like all that stuff. So for me, I needed that like dividing line of like, this means, you know, if you eat under 50 grams of carbs a day, this means you're on a diet. Like, for me personally. And that's what felt good. And that's what it worked really well. It took a while, you know, kind of to figure it out and to get, you know, more comfortable with it over time and stuff like that. But yeah, the habits that I developed were awful, because still to this day, I wake up multiple times in a night, but I'll wake up and think that I'm hungry. I'm not hungry. Like, it's impossible. Like,
I'm the same way. I hate that.
I'm not actually hungry, but I always eat. I still eat in the middle of the night, but
how do you stop that, dude?
Yeah, nowadays I'll be a meathead about it. I'll have like a protein shake. It's rare for me to like binge and eat unhealthy. So I've done a lot better with that, but I still will eat in the middle of the night.
Yeah, which sucks. I kind of have a problem with that too.
I think most people, I think there's a lot of people, I should say, that suffer from binging more so than they do any, like people are always looking for, oh, Bradley, how do you eat? How do you do this? How do you do that? People are going to ask us a lot of questions and about particular, what do you think of carnivore? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And for most people, most of the people that are really heavy, it's like you need to find a diet that allows you to keep with it consistently for a long period of time, whatever style of diet that is. And you need to figure out something that prevents you from binging.
Yeah.
So if you haven't, like, I'm not saying you have to have variety of foods in order to not binge, but it's helpful for most people. Like if you satisfied that thing for a burrito, then then hopefully, you know, you're not binging at night. And if you fed yourself enough during the day,
Right.
hopefully later on in the evening, you're not binging. But I think for guys like you and I mean, if you're over like 200 pounds and you start to kind of get into this world, this fitness world, and you've been lifting a lot, I mean, we can pack away a lot of food. And so even if you ate in the morning, just because you ate in the morning and it should satisfy you from like a caloric and energy perspective, it probably like, you're still probably going to want to binge at night.
Yeah, I do have a hard time with the food at night, man.
Yeah.
It's something I want to be better at. Switching topics a little bit. You were on Joe Rogan, what, twice?
Yeah, I was on there with my brother a couple times, yeah.
What'd you guys talk about? Steroids?
We did talk a little bit about steroids. We talked a lot about like nutrition. I was on there as well to like rap about training and diet and stuff like that. And one thing I am proud of, one thing I think that's really cool is that my brother and I, we were the first mention of a meat and fruit diet. Not that we invented it, because people eating all kinds of different ways has been around forever.
Yeah.
But I always thought that was kind of cool. We talked about that with Joe Rogan, and he has such a huge platform.
Massive.
You know, that's anything someone talks about on there that's, you know, a good initiative or a good idea, like he's going to be able to get the ball rolling on that pretty good.
Yeah. It's crazy what he's done, man. I think he's like the number one dude that's not mainstream media, like producing media.
I think he's one of the few people that you can actually, like, I think having like role models that you don't like have good personal rapport with, I don't think is a great idea. You know, like a lot of times people look outside the home for their like idols and stuff. And I don't know what your relationship is with your mom, but I'm imagining she's probably somebody that is probably like a rock for you, or you have some other family members that maybe are like that, especially because of the circumstances you went through when you were young. But sometimes we have a tendency to kind of like idolize people maybe a little too much. And then we find out that, you know, they do X, Y, and Z, but we should know that about people because everyone has their faults. But Joe Rogan is somebody where, even though I know him, we're not like buddies. I don't know him. We don't hang out a lot or anything. I do think that he's someone who's admirable. I do think he's someone to like look up to. I admire the hell out of him. I think what he's doing is awesome. It's impressive. Like not just the podcast stuff is impressive, but he also has his wife, his children. He really doesn't talk that much about that side of himself on the show.
Yeah.
I admire the hell out of that. I think that's cool. I've never even heard him. Maybe I've heard him maybe once. I listened to a lot of shows. But he never even mentions like the names of his kids and stuff like that. And I think he's good at the whole balancing of like privacy. And I mean, I'll just suck him off for an hour. I mean,
no, he's great, man.
He seems like an incredible person, and I admire it.
Yeah. And I think he's just done a really good job at just being super genuine, like what he believes, and not being sort of no dictation from what other people want him to say or not say. And I think that's why he has so much success, for sure. And that's, you know, at that level, to have that much sort of like power and not kind of sway in a way that, I don't know, maybe, you know, most media want you to sway. He's just kind of like, this is just how I feel, and this is what I think based on what I know and what I've experienced. And I think a lot of people, I mean, he's the epitome of that, in my opinion. And I think people really gravitate even more and more towards him because, you know, all the sort of misinformation or disinformation that is coming from mainstream, that people are like, yo, where can I get some sort of information that just doesn't feel like bullshit?
He'll also tell you, you know, actively go out and listen to other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, active, like, don't just use me as a resource, because if you only use me as a resource, then you're only getting this certain subset of people.
Yeah, well,
kinda
that's
fed to
the
you.
biggest problem, I think, just in like society nowadays because of social media, or not so much because social media is kind of mending it, but it was just people taking things for exactly what someone said and just being like, that's it. And it comes down to just not critically thinking about anything, or not being willing to, and just going, my friend said this, so that's what I believe, and not being like, well, why is this that? And he's just done a lot of that, and he seems to be like highly interested in certain things, and he goes down that rabbit hole to try to like understand as much as he can, so that when he comes and he speaks about it, it's like not like a complete expert, but well versed enough to have a conversation in like so many different facets.
I love that stuff. I love like kind of questioning the knowledge, you know, just he's had guests on, you know, he's had some guests that are like, you know, way kind of over here with their beliefs or some of the things they say. And you're like, man, that's wild. But then you think about it a little bit more and you're like, well, maybe the guy has like a little bit of a point. You know, you can kind of see, like, I like trying to, you know, you play devil's advocate. Sometimes you go on the other side and you think the opposite of what someone's saying. And then other times you start to pair up with them a little bit and think, yeah, I wonder, like, as an example, you know, somebody talking about landing on the moon. Like, that is a really interesting thing. Did we really land on the moon, or like, was that produced? Like, it seems wild because, like, if I FaceTime you just from Sacramento to LA, like, I can barely get the damn thing to work. Like, it's going to be sketchy. It's going to be glitchy, right? So we barely have, I mean, we can stream, but like even streaming and we watch a podcast streamed, there's a little delay. It's glitchy. It like stops and all this different
Really,
stuff.
I think it's perfect now.
Well, it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
It's gotten a lot better, but there still can be like interruption. I guess my point is that if we go back 5 years, it was kind of, you know, it wasn't great 5 years ago.
Yes.
So how in 1969 was it so dialed in that we could watch someone land on the moon?
Dude, the moon,
live?
I mean, that was also like a whole race against other countries to say who's there first. And it's like, based on everything I know about countries and politics and governments, it would make sense for us to be like, we did it first and it not happen. Like, it just like, that wouldn't be too far-fetched to believe that happened.
I'm not even saying I believe one way or the other. I just think it's interesting, right? And when you start to think that way, then you could start to think about like anyone that's put in front of you, whether it's social media or on a podcast, and you say, I want to look into that more. That's interesting.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the, I'm going to look into it, instead of just my friend said this or that guy said this and I just believe it to be true. Like, 'cause that's seemingly what it's looked like, you know, people have been taught to do for so many years. Just like, we said this because it's on CNN. This is the truth.
Just take it to the bank.
Yeah. And now because of social media, I think you're having a lot more independent people come and say and speak their mind, so that more people are waking up and being like, maybe it is not exactly just this. Because truthfully, like, nothing is always just that simple and cut and dry.
You should probably question everything. Probably question a little bit everything. Why not try to find out for yourself?
And it's also how you really learn something.
Right.
Like we even said earlier about learning, downloading information, but then like really applying it is a completely different thing. So that's what it all kind of comes full circle. And it's like, are you willing to put in the effort it takes to apply something, even when it's hard? And that's how you find success at anything in life.
How do you usually learn? What are some of your processes?
The hard way.
Yeah, after the fact. Right?
Yeah.
After you
when I'm like, I fucked that up enough times.
Yeah.
Damn.
That is a great way to learn.
That's how I learn. So I've always
Live
learned.
action.
Yeah, exactly. Live action learning.
Yeah.
Because I've hear from people all the time. They'll be like, yeah, no, look, be careful for this. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then
Wham.
sure enough, the same exact thing hits me straight in the face. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. But let me f it up again and get hit one more time. And then now I'm not going to do it again. I don't know. I've always learned the hard way.
What about books or podcasts, or you listen to stuff on tape or audio
I'm pretty,
or whatever?
dude, like, I've never really been super big in consuming content. I think because I've always kind of been in the content game and like making content. But I have lately been reading more books, like into things I'm like interested in. And I think that's very beneficial, just because, like, again, it's just you're learning someone else's take on something. And I think that's just essential in developing your perspective on it instead of just, like I said, just what I see is the only way, because it's also not realistic in so many ways.
I like to consume, you know, some other stuff, you know, like I'll do it via like audiobook or YouTube, a lot of YouTube. I'll listen to podcasts. I try to find out, you know, information about all kinds of different things. And I might like research something for a little while and try to learn it. Years ago when I was working on equanimity and balance and stuff like that, I listened to a lot of just flat out like motivational speakers. There's one of them in particular, his name is Jim Rohn. I listened to a lot of his work, and I would actually just sit there and I'd journal. I'd like write stuff down, almost like I was in school, which is really interesting because I hated school because I struggled in it.
Yeah.
And then later on, I kind of took myself to school, but I like consuming some information like that. I don't really write stuff down as much. I might make a note in my phone here or there, but I found it really useful. And I try to use my runs that I go on or driving in the car. I try to utilize that as like a classroom. Like this is just another opportunity to learn. And yes, I'm concentrating on like what I'm doing, concentrating on driving or concentrating on running and getting out of it what I need to get out of it that way.
You're in the car just writing
But
notes
yeah.
as you're driving. All what he's
Yeah. I'm also, you know, simultaneously learning something. And I don't know, just for me, that's been something that's been really productive over the years, so that I'm not like, when I'm in like a learning phase, I'm not just like, I don't know, so just sitting still. I'm like doing multiple things.
Yeah. Just like you have like overachiever OCD shit. Like I've done that too. Like I'll like walk on a treadmill. I'm like listening to an audiobook or something.
I saw your treadmill. It's like right in front of your TV. It's sick. That's great.
And it's funny.
But why not though?
Yeah, but it's funny because I was talking to a friend and they were like, "Why don't you just walk? Go for a walk." I'm like, "You're right."
Well, you should definitely pop outside or something.
Still do that, of course, but
Yeah.
it was just like more so if I can do this in this specific location while I can focus on other things was in my mind at the same time. So
Right.
but yeah, it's funny.
What you were saying about like when we were talking about consumption is I do agree with you though. Like I don't consume like a crazy amount of stuff from other people. I feel like I'm busy sort of like writing my own book.
Yeah.
And I'm busy like putting out my own content in a way. You know, when you do as many podcasts as I've done, or you just,
How many do you think you've done?
I've done probably around 2,000 podcasts, and then I don't know, thousands of videos on YouTube over the years.
Yeah.
So while I like the other content, I like consuming content. I also like creating it. Like I guess what I like the most is to take some information that I hear, and I like being able to put that into my own content or utilize that when I get an opportunity to be on a show like this. So I'm not just sitting here going, oh,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about Huberman's and that episode, I guess, with Goggins. I'd love to talk to that guy. That guy's really
I just
sharp.
lifted with him this morning with
Really?
Huberman. Yeah, I just came from his house. We trained some legs. He's strong. He's very
Actually strong?
Yeah.
Like what's strong? Like you squat.
Well, he
like, more
was.
than-
Let's see. He was the hack squat machine. You know, I know machines or whatever, but he did like 5 plates on the machine.
Damn.
Did some reps. Did
Is
a
he-
stack on some leg curls.
I can't tell. Is he like jacked?
He's jacked. Yeah, he's in great shape.
Yeah, I was saying like we were off camera. I was
Anyone
like,
that's got a neck, I got some respect for. He's got, you know, he works his neck all the time. He's got a neck machine.
I like people who are that smart who are like jacked. And for me, it makes sense because I'm like, if you're that smart, like you could probably make yourself jacked. And then I'm like really more prone to listening to that guy than someone else then because I'm like, oh, it's not just here. He like applied it.
It makes it more relatable for us.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's cool when someone you kind of like recognize like, oh, he's kind of one of us. Like this is perfect.
Yeah.
But when someone is lifting and they're putting these things into practice, it's just that much more beneficial, I think. Like I think you'll get more out of content from somebody like that. They're not only researching it, but they're actually using it practical application.
Always comes back to that.
Yeah.
Actually doing the work. Damn, dude. It's been an honor. It's a pleasure. Got to have you come back. Any questions for me before we end it?
You know, I loved years ago, you called me up and we were talking a little bit and you said, it's something about like zoo culture, like you're about to open it up or something. And
Yeah.
I was pumped for you. I remember because you and I were in contact a little bit. You were asking him, you were like, man, I got these like permits and like this is taking forever and this is happening, this is happening. And then you were pumped and you're like, hey, I'll give you an update. Like it's like we're opening the doors tomorrow. And I said like, congratulations. This is the start. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of times when we start a business or you start something, it's like you feel like, oh, thank God all that hard work's behind me. It's like, no, now it just begins.
Yeah.
Like now here it comes. Here comes the razor blade coming at you full speed. Once you start that business, there's no stopping it.
Yeah. It's dude, it's been a lot. I wish I opened up more sooner. Like since.
Oh, do you have two?
Well, the old one is now a trainer studio. So we have trainers, they rent the space and they use the space with their clients and we help them like build their business and stuff. It's called Zoo Studios. And then I'm looking at spaces. I've been looking at spaces in Miami, but like I'm probably more closely going to get a space in Vegas just because it's easier for me to like be back in between. But I wish I had opened up more sooner, but it's just so hard with like logistically for like, I like in an ideal situation, I'd have an operating partner who'd be a partner and like help me operate these locations because I can't, put my finger on everything all the time.
Right.
But yeah, dude, it's been so much fucking fun, honestly. Like having the gym has been the greatest thing because having people come in and like I said earlier, like talking to people and like hearing people's stories, it just like almost fires me up more and more every time I like have those conversations. Makes me want to do more.
Are you able to be consistent with your workouts and stuff?
No, that's been one of the hardest things. But I've more recently found a better balance with that. With the first 2 years of that thing opening, I was like, my workouts were all trash, if that like non-existent. It was like working out just for content at that point.
Right.
Because people would come and there'd be so many people to talk to me that I would just like, if I talk to someone here, then there's like 5 more people who want to talk and they kind of just end up lining up and I end up like doing like almost like a meet and greet where I thought I was going to go work out. But that's just something I understand. I just had to change for myself and balance and just kind of like, if I was going to come into the gym now, just like put my headphones in and lock in and just say, hey, when I'm done, get a photo or talk later. But not everyone likes that. But I just realized I just got to like, I do that. Otherwise I'm not doing what I need to do for my own just mental health,
I love that thing you posted a couple days ago, or maybe it wasn't even posted by you. It might have been somebody else because people share your stuff all the time. But
yeah,
you were working out with your friend, and it seemed like he was going through a rough time. And you were like,
yes,
"Come
with
on,
Youssef.
dude! Like, don't be a like." And then you got like more serious for a second, and you said, "What else are you gonna do?" And I love that because even if is falling apart around you, it's still in your best interest to invest time into yourself. It's still in your best interest to go to the gym. It's still in your best interest to go hit up that run. It's not gonna assist you any further by being lazier. It's gonna make it worse. It's gonna make things way worse
every time.
And especially if you're out of shape. So it's not helpful to get fatter. And so you need to try to like, just like a fight, you need to protect yourself at all times. You need to keep your hands up. And you need to keep fighting, even on days when you don't necessarily. There's days you can take off, but you kind of need to earn those days off. You need to earn the right to be a little inconsistent and still stay in shape.
Yeah. I mean, I remember having that conversation with him, and obviously I've had much more in-depth conversation with him about like what is actually he's going through, and based on everything I know and based on what he's told me, it's like you. What's your other choice? Is your other choice to like let it all go and quit and just end it? It's like, or are you going to try to fight back? You're going to try to keep doing this and just focusing on this? Because in that moment, it was more like you might be dealing with all this other stuff mentally, but like you're here right now. Just focus on this. Just do this. Get some water, breathe. Do this. Get some water, breathe. Like that's all you can really do. And the thing about life that you realize when it comes to like, all these like dark thoughts or these moments where like it's really fucked up is like the only thing that's going to get you out of it and get you to where you think you want to be because you're tired of feeling this way or being this way is just by like right now putting in that effort in whatever it is you're doing right now, whether it's a conversation with someone and like really being in it. Because all those moments where you're like distraught, the back of your mind is like, it's taking you somewhere else, and this fear or whatever it is bringing you there. But if I'm having a conversation with you, I'd say even about that, I have to still be right here to like process it going forward. Otherwise, I'm just living off of these thoughts that are pulling me in a direction that I don't want to be in anymore. So it's like,
That's huge.
you don't have a choice. Your choice is to be here right now in this moment, whether you're talking it out or you're working out or you're doing something to like go forward. Otherwise, you just keep going back. And like, that's the thing. That's what I was trying to get him to understand. I was trying to get him to see that, because there is no other choice. Your other choice is leave here, go home, and just continue to think about the things that are tearing you apart, or not. And why would you choose that? And you could choose this right now. So
I think that's the medicine of the hard work.
yeah,
You know, put in that hard work. You know, if you and I were in conversation and we're in the gym and we're lifting, and let's just say we're doing like leg extensions or something, we're going back and forth, we can be talking about other stuff. Our mind can be in other places. We could be talking about these other gyms that you're going to open up. I might open up in Miami, you're going to open up over here. But once we start getting into the workout, if you're doing some crazy drop set or something, you have no choice but to be locked into that present moment. I think that's one of the true values of hard work. You go out on a run, or you're pushing yourself to a spot where you can no longer really even think about it. It's a thoughtless moment in time. And I think one of the huge benefits of that, in my opinion, is that you get to lock yourself in with literally just being with yourself. Sometimes you might be, with somebody else in some of these moments, but I think people have a really hard time sitting still. I think people have a really hard time being with themselves. And if you have a hard time being with yourself, it's because you're in the presence of bad company. So that's something to really think about. Like, why do you not like, what makes you so anxious about being by yourself or with your own thoughts? It's something to really think about. And I think it's something for people to really work on.
Yeah, that's a fact, man. It's true what you say, because that idea, it's almost like you're avoiding it. And the thing about, I think the gym that's given me so much like perspective to be able to be here and to share this stuff is that's what I really realize, in that you can't think about anything else but like when you're pushing it to that level, but like what you're doing. But it does at the same time, it makes everything so present. Because for me, it was a weird like double-edged sword where like for me, it was like I was escaping all these thoughts because I could only focus on this. But then you kind of get to a point where you realize like, yeah, you're able to just focus on it and push yourself in that direction. But that doesn't mean the thoughts were just going away.
You still have to deal with it. Yeah.
So then I realized, okay, like the same way that I'm dealing with like what I just said, the same way I'm dealing with the gym, because I enjoy this feeling of escaping, and like, and it's making me better physically because I'm doing this time after time after time. I have to now apply this to myself and those thoughts and those feelings that I've been avoiding. I have to sit with myself, and that's hard.
It's not an easy thing to do. Being still, being quiet, being silent. They're things that I've only recently started to like practice more. I don't mind, being by myself. Like I'll walk a lot. I'll be by myself. I'll run quite a bit, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that time being by myself. But something I've been practicing more recently is to even get rid of the headphones, get rid of the phone, and just go out on my own. And it's like I said with the workout earlier, like it's difficult at first. And it seems like I can't do it. It seems like, oh, I'd love to listen to some music right now, or I'd love to listen to a podcast. But once I get moving, I don't know, maybe once 5-10 minutes goes by, then I don't even think about it anymore. Now I'm just kind of off and I'm going, and it feels incredible. I realize that people probably, they don't want to necessarily pump the brakes on their life, and they don't want to practice some of these things, but some form of meditation, I think meditation can be done in some different ways. But even if you can just take 2 minutes, just lie down on the ground, lie down on the floor put your feet up on your couch, cross your hands over, and just close your eyes and just breathe for like 2 minutes. Just give it a try. Just give it a shot. Does it improve anything? Do you feel less anxious when you're done? Were you able to block out a lot of thoughts? Or was your mind racing the entire time? You can kind of take it as a challenge. And you can say, oh man, the whole time I was just thinking about all these other things. Maybe next time you try it, you're able to think a little less. And maybe over time, you want to try to just sit there, be quiet and be silent and be thoughtless.
Yeah. You know, it's hard, but I think this in life, like you're either going to be forced to make that change, like somehow, whether it be like a physical, like a health force or whatever, or death, whatever this is. It's either you get forced to that point or you decide to be in control and make that change. And I just think everyone really doesn't even have a choice. Like you're either going to get forced to make a change or you're going to make the change. And I think it's just accepting that and just like being, okay, I'd rather not like be forced. My choice should be to want to be more proactive than just be reactive when I'm forced to do something, because it's going to come one way or another, health wise or relationship wise. Like you're going to get forced out of a relationship, or you're going to get forced into some sort of like health issue that you're not combating because you haven't been doing the things you need to do to fix it. So the choice is yours. You either get forced into something or you take charge and you make the choice and do it on your own. So yeah, life's crazy, man.
It's really well said. I think, you know, being proactive is something that can help someone not be reactionary. You know, if you're proactive and you have things sorted out and you're continually working on yourself, then it's going to be that much easier to not overreact to shit.
Yeah. Man. Well, that was a little therapy session for me.
That was great, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming, man. Sincerely, for sure. I've known you for years, dude. And I'm happy for all your success. I know you've been crushing it for a really long time. I'm glad you're back on YouTube. I'm glad they reinstated you.
Jorge.
Yeah, and yeah, I'll have to come up do the pod sometime, man.
I'd love that.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming, Mark.
All right, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.